All right.
Oh, well,
The first one is was sponsored by Colosimo Test. It's an audit. She says she wants to hold that, so we're just gonna skip that one right now. The next one is an ordinance approving the designation of the Masonic Medical Research Institute as an eligible qualified project sponsor. Is any, Brian, can you tell us, is there any movement on this, or? Go
I
ahead.
can, we're still in discussion with MMRI. The last proposal that we had was to do an option contract. We think that that would be in the best interest of both the city and MMRI. I have not heard back from them yet, so that's what we are waiting on.
Okay, so we have so whereas the Wednesday, February 7th is a public hearing, we're gonna hold that up?
The public hearing was already called for.
Right.
We're just holding off on the actual voting on this piece because I may need to amend the actual legislation depending on if they're gonna do an option contract.
All right, so if there's another contract, do you have to have another public hearing on that?
Most likely.
in all likelihood, if it goes to an option, we may even have to put it back in front of the urban renewal board first as well.
So if you want to, I would leave this because if we end up going forward, then it saves us doing the legislation. You just have to make an amendment as far as the dates. But I would just leave this in committee for now until we have other information.
They haven't given you any time where they're gonna get back to you or anything like, did you give them a time frame when they'd like you to
They
get back?
had a board
to-
meeting, I believe, on Friday, last Friday, and I believe we're intending to discuss at that point. We just haven't heard from their legal counsel yet as to what the outcome of that meeting was.
Okay, so we should hear something possibly by the next,
I'm hoping I'll be sending a follow-up email, so I'm hoping that we hear something within the next couple days as far as what their thoughts are going forward, and then we'll be able to take action from there.
okay. So, okay, so we're putting that on hold, all right. Next one is, this one, Regina, then this one here, we're discussing ordinance prohibiting the public consumption of cannabis. Are you gonna lean in on that at all?
No, and right now, we're leaving that in committee as well. I think the mayor had some amendments based on some of the public commentary. So we will, I would leave that in committee as well.
I just got them come, this is how I had them lined up on mine.
So we'll do the 6th.
So, I apologize, for some reason this one got put in front of me here. So let's do this one and then we'll get back to
Which one you're on?
This is, go to number 9, for some reason 9 was here, I don't know why you got mixed up. But this is, ordinance prohibiting, so you're doing more on that, you're saying?
On the prohibition of the smoking and use on public streets, yes, there may be an amendment, and I know that the mayor is working on addressing some of the concerns that the public had.
All right, so we can hold on to that one then too. I apologize for jumping out of order, I didn't notice that. Okay, this, next one is number 3, Councilman Aiello, no parking at all times. You ready to bring that out?
Yeah, I've been with that one. I don't know if anybody else has questions on it still, or if they were waiting for UPD for more answers.
Have you heard anything on that at all, or?
Yeah, where's number 3? That's what I'm looking for. Hold on.
Because that was submitted by UPD, but I don't know who requested it, where it came from, where the schedule is, what it looks like.
It's all exactly what's on there is what was given to me.
It goes along with that, so that was the question.
I don't have any more information on that, and I don't know if UPD would be here tonight or not.
Okay, remind me when UPD comes, we mention that to them, all right?
So UPD is requesting this?
Yeah, they've been doing a series of them. This is probably like the 10th one we've done now, just to try to accommodate what's going on with the hospital and that whole area of what parking should happen and what shouldn't. So this was per their recommendation.
Do they plan on coming today, do you know?
I assume so. They have been, but I don't know.
Well, to be fair, when they come, bring it up, all right?
Yep.
So what's our past practice on this? If they want something, we usually do it, don't we?
Yeah.
Joe, I don't have a problem bringing it up, but
I was just kind of concerned where it
Samantha had
says
some
on
questions.
Broadway from Lafayette to Columbia Street along the western curb line. So, I mean, that's a pretty big stretch. I just kind of want to know what their explanation was and
Okay.
what
So
they.
if Eddie
what was
comes
it-
or
what
any
was
of,
it-
I believe UPD will be here tonight. So.
okay,
I'll put that one sideways.
yeah, right, because we can ask them when they come and we can pull it out at the end if we have to.
Yep, I'm tracking.
Was there a 90-day trial? How did it become about?
All right. Venice, Councilman Irvin, your next one, you got number 5 here. Ordinance approving the designation of A&D development.
sale of lot.
Oh, yeah, that's,
We'll go ahead and pull that. You good with it?
is everything okay with that?
Yeah, I believe all the corrections were made at the last time for the,
We just had to make the amendment that it was a consolidating when it was
Yeah.
adjacent property, but it was a lot that had to be, it had to be clarified that it was a lot that was being sold for $250.
All right, so we're pulling that one, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's been fixed, I believe you're right.
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
yes.
So the only one so far we're pulling is five.
There's that one, right. And then number 7 is, the next one is number 7, proposed ordinance number 7. Councilman Irvin?
Yeah, that's good. I had to go look at that one. I couldn't remember where it was. I think it's the one, the corner of Leah and Student. Yeah, yeah,
So we're gonna pull that, right?
yeah.
Okay. Next one is Councilman Burmaster and Williamson, resolution providing a public hearing on a zoning amendment.
so this is the start of the, obviously the amendments that we proposed for, the marijuana dispensaries. You need to call for a public hearing so that you can, have that and then you can vote on these. So I would recommend that you call for a public hearing at your next meeting, which I believe is, May 1st. Planning board will be meeting tomorrow to consider all of these amendments and providing their report for your May 1st meeting. So I recommend you do that, add that to this piece, fill in the blank, add it for May 1st, and call for the public hearing so you can get that taken care of. I would recommend that you do that for tonight.
And the reason that it was put into committee was there was a couple of questions that I had in regards to amending and then adding. I thought that we should rescind and replace. So again, we're not amending each component of it, and I brought that up to you last time. Since you're adding, it didn't read the way it should have. Because it says, ordinance adding section 2-29-361 of the Utica City
Which
Code of
one are you
Ordinance.
looking at?
10.
Well, 9.
So that's calling for the public
nine-
hearing. Right, that's
nine,
calling
it's
for the
all-
public
it's
hearing,
all the
but
same
you
piece.
gotta make sure that the pieces of legislation that you're passing actually meet what the planning board can consider. So this is 10. So this is calling for the public hearing.
Nine is calling for.
Nine
Right,
is
so
fine.
we're on 10. That goes into an ordinance adding section 2-29-361 of the Utica City Code of Ordinances. So it says, be it ordained that section 2-9 supplemental regulations of the Code of Ordinance is hereby amended by adding section 2-29-361.
Well, so technically, when you make an amendment, you can add or subtract. It's just an
I get
amendment.
that, but that's what my whole thing, that we just went through the whole zoning code to try and simplify it so that we rescinded and replaced the whole entire thing. So just like I said, if it reads as follows, I mean, so you're,
It's just.
so you're not
that-
I don't know. I don't like the way it reads, to be honest with you, and I think that that's kind of the problem that I had. Either you're adding it or you're amending it.
It's-
If you're adding it to the code, I understand you're amending it, but then it should just be rescinded and replaced so that it's its own separate section, so that it's.
So just time out for a second. So for proposed ordinance number 10, that section does not exist currently.
Right, so you're adding it.
We're adding it, but that is
Right.
an amendment. So you can't rescind and replace anything. You have to make an amendment and add the
Not
amendment.
rescind. You rescind and then you replace it to add it with this whole entire section. So you rescind the entire code, okay? And then you add this into the section.
Sam, you do not need.
So then
You do
that it
not-
just needs to be,
you
I
do
don't
not
know.
need to- you
I don't
do
like
not
that.
need- You do not need to do that for the zoning.
I don't like that, and I wasn't comfortable with it last time, so I don't,
The zoning ordinance, it's in and of itself, the reason they passed it the way they did is because it dealt with all zoning within the city, but it is its own sections of the code. You can address it and amend it and make various changes to it without rescinding the entire zoning
I
ordinance.
don't know.
All right, can I make a suggestion on this? You two guys set up a meeting.
We were supposed to in between the last 2 weeks, and I think that we're running out of the timeline. My whole thing is that I understand that you're,
So you got no
Well,
problem
so-
with it, you just don't like the way it's worded.
not at all.
Well, that's what, why don't you-
Because
Well,
that's the whole point, like, you're adding a section, so
But-
technically, if it's not there,
Respectfully-
how are you amending something?
Well,
Respectfully,
council disagrees.
And here's the thing, you're not, that's my whole thing, if you were amending a section of the ordinance, I could understand that, but you're adding a whole separate section, and that's the whole thing that we went through last time, that said, oh, this was already in there, so we're amending it.
But it's not unlike the no parking at all times. when you do that, you're adding that section of street. You're not,
But
you're
it's
not
already,
rescinding the
but it's already
entire
in there, we're
no
not.
parking section and then just,
Is there a section 2-29361 in the code right now? No, there is not. So it's not like we're just amending the section of the code, okay? That's my whole point of this. You're adding section 361. So that was my whole point, because you're adding it,
Section 2-29 does exist though in supplemental regulations.
right, but 361 doesn't. So then again, you're amending it and then adding, how are you amending something that's not there? You're
Sam,
adding it to
Sam,
it.
this is, you're using,
No, are you amending section 361?
no,
you're
you're,
adding it,
No.
but that is what.
you're amending section 229.
By adding section,
So, as you,
All right, so I see what they're doing now.
I see what they're doing too, but my whole thing is that yes, I understand you're amending section 2-9, but it's not like you're amending 2-29-360
They're not,
and then adding to that.
wait, but they're.
Joe,
they're-
is there,
Wait a second, they're amending 2.-29.
Yes.
They're adding 2-2-29361. They're not amending that, they're amending this to add
right,
that.
so why don't you just add
What's the difference here? What do we- I mean,
2-29-361?
this is-
Because Joe, because we just went through this, not even a
Yeah, but
year
Sam,
and a
what
half
you're
ago.
suggesting is that we rescind the entire zoning ordinance and replace it with this section.
Adding
That
it,
is
adding it in there.
That is incorrect.
We just did it with every single
I know,
piece.
and I fought that.
And I
because-
didn't disagree, I didn't agree with you then, but we did it and it's there. I
So-
just rather have it read as follows, not have it be an amended section, because technically you're adding a section to the code.
Is there a legal worry or something with that then, or what, like, what
I
is
don't
the
know what you mean.
difference?
I don't
What
know
is
what
the
you mean.
difference of, ultimately, I guess?
Because there's no such section as 361 right now.
Right, but they're amending to.
I understand that, but-
To add.
From
So,
council's perspective, I
so
can
then
tell
it
you
should
what-
read, adding section,
Yeah, that's-
adding section 361 to 2-29.
Just
Okay.
But you're not amending it.
From council, from my perspective, and from the legal perspective, the issue, and I said this the last time when we wanted to rescind the entire zoning ordinance and replace it. You run the risk of making mistakes and errors with that, and when E-code does it, there's lots of problems that can be associated with it. By just addressing the section, when we go and it is added to E-code, they're very well aware of what exactly we're doing and what changes that we're making.
I don't know, we didn't
So
have
why
any
can't you
problem the
say-
last time.
Again, and I'm just asking, you're a lawyer, instead of saying amending, why can't you say 2-29? We're gonna
Well, I would need-
add, we're gonna add 2-29361 instead of amending. Because you're really not amending, you're just ending, you're just adding this
Yeah, it
little
just-
piece into that section.
Yeah, it just won't read correctly in the sentence. Because it says, be it ordained that section 2-29 supplemental regulations of the code and ordinances is hereby amended by adding that section. If you take out amended, it just says, be it ordained that section 2-29 supplemental regulations of the code of ordinances is hereby adding section, it doesn't read correctly because you're making an amendment. An amendment can be changes, additions, subtractions, deletions, it's an amendment.
Just a word.
It's just a word.
I get what she's saying, I don't agree with that, and I didn't agree with it last time, hence the
Well, but
reason why we
it's- I mean,
passed it the
you
way
don't
we
have to
did.
agree with it, but at the end of the day, we gotta do it. and it's-
That's fine, I
it's
won't vote for it,
basically
just
the
based
right
on
thing.
that principle itself. Because you keep amending stuff and adding stuff to the code, then everyone's like, oh, when did, this section get added to the code? I mean, if
That
you
section-
if you start it from the beginning to end, right? You just take this, because you're adding it to it, you rescind and you replace it, it starts fresh. Well, we know that now, nothing's being amended to the code, but on April 17th, we rescinded, we replaced, this is the way the code reads as follows. That's my whole thing. And that's what was the problem with was, I hate to say it, with the previous code, is because people kept adding and amending and adding and amending. We know that we're adding this section. As is, that's the way it follows. You rescind and replace it with this code actually in there. So you're not just adding and then amending. That's because, I don't know, that's I guess my biggest problem, and the problem that we had previously with adding to the smoke shops. Okay, you added smoke shops. Well, then what were they called? I don't know, neighborhood retail. Oh, then you did it. It flows
I think ever
through
since we did
that.
new zoning, it's been nothing but a nightmare anyway, but that's fine.
I mean, this, you guys can do what you want, but just based on principle, I think this, if you're
Is there
adding a
way-
section of
Is there a
code,
way to reword it to say add it instead of rescind it?
So the issue that, I can reword that, but what Sam is proposing is to rescind and replace, which I am not an advocate for. And that's procedurally incorrect. You can make the proposed amendment exactly as I have, and that's correct.
Joe, so if you look at the last code that we passed, if you look on the E code
This is
360,
legislation.
every
That would have to
single.
be several hundred pages of the entire
Oh,
zoning
yes.
ordinance.
Right, but if you know that you're just adding to the section, everything goes back to April, now, the last time that we even amended or rescinded and replaced was April 3rd. So you know that nothing's been added or subtracted from the code, right?
Actually, it's easier to follow this way.
It's easier to follow this way because it shows on equal when we've made amendments to
Yeah,
certain
and how
sections.
did that go?
Under-
And how did that go the last time when we amended and we did this? And then we couldn't find legislation
under
in the
your
clerk's
proposal-
office, then we couldn't find this one and that one.
Under your proposal, somebody would have to take the entire several hundred pages of the zoning ordinance that
And
was
change it.
previously.
Why wouldn't you do that anyways?
No,
to
and
walk-
make the
to-
comparison.
And make the comparison, page by page, line by line, word by word, to figure out when
Doesn't that-
something was approved.
Doesn't that make sense to rescind and replace the
No.
entire one? But
It's
let me ask you
easier
a
to follow
question.
this way.
Let me ask you a
Because there's a
question.
citation in there that shows when the county
If
council
nothing
adopted it.
changed since the last time we rescinded and replaced, why are you gonna go back on certain amendments and in between each part of the zoning code and find out when it was amended? We know that by adding this is the last time something was added to the code. So you don't have a previous code to go on, because the last time we had this conversation, there was a different code that was online, there was a different code that was added to our E code 360, hence the reason that I had to take 4 days out of my life to redo the entire thing from what was originally passed, because you had online stuff that was different from what was in E code. You had
That's
different
all been-
pieces of
that's all been
legislation that was in
corrected,
there.
right? That's all corrected.
Right, because we rescinded and replaced the entire
Yeah, but-
thing.
But again, going forward, there's no.
Okay,
reason-
going forward, right, until you get to the point where nobody knows what's going on again. And that's my whole point. This is the last time we rescinded and replaced the piece, okay? We had to keep amending it, and then it didn't make sense. So we took the entire code and did it all over again. If you take this, the same code's gonna apply except you're adding it. But you know that the last time you added this, and the last time any changes or adjustments were made, was now April 17th. So you don't have to go back and you don't have to look and say, April 3rd was the last time we did that, or April 15th was it. You're not just talking about amending a section. You're talking about adding a section, which is now 3-61,
So,
or 29-361.
unless there's other questions about procedurally and the amendments, I know
Well, we still
Regina's-
didn't get the updated maps.
Regina is here to discuss the maps that we have and show the comparisons of what currently exists in the zoning and what the proposed changes are. And I'm gonna have her address that and answer your questions. And just for clarification, proposed ordinance number 10 is supplemental regulations. It doesn't necessarily deal with the map. It deals with the criteria that the board will need to look at when evaluating special use permits that are,
Well, but I want to get through 10. Are we going to pull this? Do
So,
we
wait,
have
let
the
me-
votes to pull
So-
this?
Let me ask one question to everybody here.
Because I don't want
This
to.
these can't be pulled until the public hearing is held.
so they
so
can't
we
be voted
can't.
on tonight anyways.
So let me ask everybody here. This 2-29-361, the wording of this, everybody's good with that. We're good with that, but we don't like how it's worded up top. We want it to say added or whatever. But the actual part of the legislation, the zoning, the zoning districts, specific special criteria, everybody's good with that?
I'm fine with it, but now, if we call a public hearing and we change it, do you have to have another public hearing?
No, the public hearing, I think, is not about this, it's about the way it's worded.
Well, no,
That's what I'm saying.
the public hearing is on all of these
Public hearing is
amendments,
about
so as long as you make a minor changes to these, the public hearing is still fine. If you make substantial changes or you need me to address certain things, then we may need to recall for it. But you haven't called for the public hearing yet, so
So we're going to call for the public.
That's
if you
not-
call for the public hearing for this meeting, and like I said, you still can't vote on anything until.
Right, but if we call for the public hearing.
If you wanna make a change to that top sentence, it's not gonna matter.
Right,
It's not
okay.
even.
All right.
I did have a
Okay.
question on it, though. There was one point of it that I wanted to address. Sorry, Joe, are you still going?
No, I'm good.
The only question I had, so in number 12, hours of operations for these uses shall be set by the planning board in its complete and total discretion. I was wondering if there is ever like an appeal process we could possibly look at, or something that if they did want to appeal, maybe went to the council before
If they
any
wish
other
to appeal, they
procedures.
can file an Article 78 as far as the general denial of the permit. But as far as the hours of operation, I can tell you there is some regulations within their actual license of the hours that they
Okay,
can
that's what-
operate. So they're gonna be set by New York State as well. But part of having a special use permit allows planning board to set conditions so it doesn't impede neighborhoods or certain other areas and to address potential concerns. So, but I think the state's regulations as far as their hours is also pretty
Yeah, I
restrictive.
see. And are there other examples where we set the hours? The planning board has full discretion over hours or anything else?
They have that discretion
In
in
general?
anything for,
Under any special use permit
With these
application,
ones.
not just
but this is
related
just
to
to
marijuana
spell,
dispensaries.
this is just to spell it out so that the board has a little bit clearer criteria, specifically regarding marijuana.
So we're gonna call for a public hearing on all these.
Yeah, 10 stays in,
10
9
through
we
14,
pull out.
all through 10 through 14. We're gonna call for a public hearing on, right?
Yeah, so the only one you would need to pull tonight is number 9.
And Brian, can you explain why the special use permit is different for hours of operation? I mean, doesn't it go depending on neighborhoods, what type of district that it's actually zoned in, so on and so forth?
Well, special permit uses are uses that are generally allowed in each district, but that may have some element of their business, of their operation, that is more impactful to the neighborhood. So it gives the planning board a chance to look at the impacts from that operation and possibly control it so that it's,
And have
Good.
more regulatory oversight on it.
right.
All right, so,
Whether that
so,
be the amount of parking, whether that be the hours of operation, noise, lighting.
make that point, that
All right.
it's not just specific to this.
so council, you'll have time, because it's going to public hearing to discuss this with Samantha on
Well,
this, right?
I'm not done yet, because
Oh,
we didn't
come
get to,
on.
well, here's the thing, so let's go to number 11.
All right.
So it says ordinance amending zoning code use table, right? And then if you read what it says, it's hereby amended by adding. So you go back to the same thing, now it says ordinance adding section 2-29-361. So, I mean, both of them you're amending and adding. So if this is a part of the table that's already been amended, I understand that you're adding it, but they read both the same way.
How about we compromise, and in this one, for number 11, we agree to rescind the use table and replace it with a use table.
That would make more sense, right?
If you're okay with number 10.
Because not for nothing, I'm not okay with number 10.
Well,
So, I mean,
That's the point of
again,
compromise.
they read the same, so that's why I'm saying, either you're amending it because the use table is already there.
but it's a lot easier to replace a one-page table than
It
the
would be,
the
so if-
300-page
based
zoning
on-
ordinance.
So-
I
but
just
they
wanna make-
read the same way.
Hold on, I just wanna make the comparison. So if you're saying this is the case, then every time we do a stop sign, every time we add a one-way, every time we add no parking, you need to rescind that entire ordinance.
No, time out.
No,
Time out.
that's the exact same thing.
You're either, you're amending it, okay? Or you're adding it. I mean, either way, either words have got to be the same.
With complete streets, when we added 2-31-8, that was, we did an entire, it was amended and not
Who
rescinded and
texted you
replaced.
that? Frank Miller or Celeste?
I literally pulled it
Oh,
up, I was
okay.
on the
Just wanted
council.
to
I was
double
really,
check.
I was really
Just wanted to
passionate about
double
complete
check.
streets, I
What
don't know if you
I'm-
remember.
What I'm just trying to say
Stop,
though
all
is,
right? We're
it's
giving,
the
we're giving you
same,
all the time you want
I
here.
don't care.
You don't
It's
throw
the-
digs, all right? Stop. Just stop, you don't
So
throw
I must have
digs.
been right.
All right, but that doesn't mean you gotta be
It's the
mean
same.
to other people, all right?
What's that, Regina?
I can,
I said, I asked Stephanie,
2-31.
instead of using the word amend, all amend means is, no, all amend means, in this case, whenever you
Okay.
do this in a zoning ordinance, it just means change. It just means bring it up to date. So, if
the
you don't
change
like
is
the word
adding or the
amend,
change
right,
is subtracting.
the change is an addition, the change is a subtraction,
Or deletion, yes.
whatever. But it's
But
a change.
Something's gotta make
But
more
you
sense
can-
then. Again, it reads ordinance adding, then it reads ordinance amended, because one already existed and one already didn't, but then if you read the same beat or name, it says hereby, it reads the same.
All right,
I mean, I don't mean to be picky, but I guess it just doesn't make sense to me.
Why
So,
is
this is the
why,
same thing
let
that
me
I
ask,
brought
let
last
me,
time.
let me ask this question. To Councilperson Testa's question, why is it two different things? Why isn't it all the same?
Well, I guess I'm confused where she's saying that we're adding and where we're saying, because both amendments read the same way. It's hereby amended by adding a section. The other one's for proposed ordinance number 11 says, hereby amended by adding the entry X. It's the same language. So, where's that?
Well, marijuana's been misspelled quite a few times.
No,
No.
no.
That's exactly how the act is in New York State. It is spelled with an H.
Wow.
Absolutely. I thought it was wrong. I went right to the state and that's what it is.
So
Yeah.
it's spelled in our,
It's a blast from the past.
it's spelled in our zoning code without the H, but any references to the actual state legislation refers to it with the H.
All right, so
But
we're holding these.
We're bringing 9.
just going back to the spelling, I mean, there's some J's and there's some H's on certain legislation here, so.
I think Stephanie just addressed that.
Yeah, they should, in our zoning code, it's always gonna be referred to with a J. But if I make a reference, so I think the New York State, zoning, I think I make reference to there's a, yeah, so in subsection, on proposed ordinance number 10, section 7, it's spelled with an H. That's because that's actually what it's called by New York State.
I suggested that we refer to it in the legislation as wacky weed, but Stephanie didn't agree with that.
All right,
We also
so,
like the double lettuce.
thank you,
Devil's
Brian.
lettuce is-
Thank you for your comments, and we're gonna move on with
So
Regina
we're
right now.
pulling 9. The other ones are saying.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Good,
you gotta do a public hearing.
that went nowhere,
We
right?
gotta do a public hearing on
So-
that.
Why?
So,
10 through 14, we're gonna be calling for a public hearing on them.
okay, so
We're
Virginia,
pulling, let me just go through this real.
Yeah, hang
We're pulling 5, 7, and 9, calling for a public hearing on 10 through 14. All right, and then we got one more we're gonna talk about later, and that is proposal number 3, no parking as soon as the PD comes in.
Okay.
I'll give it to you again. 5, we're pulling 5, 5, 7, 9, calling for a public hearing on 10 through 14. You got it?
That's part of 9 though, right? That's what they're calling a public hearing.
Right. All right, so, any last questions on this before
Yeah,
Regina speaks?
question number 3.
Go ahead.
Are we putting parking meters down there eventually? Over there?
I'm not aware, I haven't seen any legislation or haven't been given.
I thought we were putting parking meters around.
They're supposed to go there, and the mayor wants to add a certain section elsewhere too.
It's not anything that I have in front of me.
Okay.
We don't even have the meters yet, do we?
All right, let's,
I don't believe so.
all right, go ahead. Thank you for your patience. You're on.
I'm on now. Okay, well, to add to everything you have in front of you, what we did is 2 maps so that you can see a before and after for marijuana dispensaries. Because currently, as of today, they are allowed in the current zoning ordinance in Central Business District, in the urban mixed use, and the industrial mixed use. So that's really what you see color coded here. So the gold ones are all where urban mixed use is around the city. Then you've got Central Business District, which is kind of reddish, and then industrial mixed use, which is the green. The total acreage of all of that, where it's allowed today, is 714.3 acres. Okay, so that's what exists. What we looked at is how do we take a look at where we're placing these dispensaries. They're going to have regulations from the state when they get their licenses. They're going to have distance requirements. So there's some things that we have absolutely no control over. But we do have some control over placement of where they are in our city. So what resulted is the after, and we are proposing creating a marijuana dispensary / retail district. And that is a term that is used with the state. It's not something we came up with out of the air. This area is all in the light green. Little different than what you see here, but similar. Went into all those current districts where it's allowed, but we tailored it a little bit more. So we pulled it back from some of the residential districts. For example, up here in North Utica, we pulled it away from where there's municipal housing, where Humphrey Gardens is, where the Legion is on Herkimer Road. That borders right on residential. So we didn't really want that included in the zone like it is here,
Well, where's Humphrey Gardens there on that map?
right here.
So it's right across the street?
So it's right across the street. However, you got a shopping center there, you've got Big Lots Plaza, so you already have some commercial districts.
Basically, already.
So you're already getting some mixed use in there, but with this, it was all included.
It was within Humphrey Gardens and everything.
Right.
I see.
So this just gives it that little bit of extra distance away. We did add in Riverside Center. It is a planned development district, correct, Brian?
Yes.
As it is now, but it is a commercial zone in Utica. Around everything kind of follows here. We have some close-up maps if you want to see where they are exactly, like in your neighborhoods. What we added on here was also liquor stores. The state is asking us to look at these dispensaries as liquor stores. I know that might sound different to some, but that's what they're asking us to do, and liquor stores are in neighborhoods. So what we did was we plotted out where they are around the city. You've got one over here in South Utica, one over here by the Price Chopper Plaza,
City Liquors.
one over here on Mohawk Street. Let's see, one over here on Bleecker,
Eric.
one on Varick, and then we have one up in North Utica in the plaza.
What's this one, all the way to the right, next to that white building?
This one?
No, keep going.
What is this area? That's Culver Ave, right
Is it the
here.
Dairy Dell?
Culver,
Yes.
Dairy Dell, where you've got some automotive uses.
So that's a previous overlay that wasn't added in the original zoning code?
No, that's current. It's
No, that's
currently
current.
allowed.
Currently
But we
allowed.
put it-
Right, but it
And
doesn't
actually, Sam, it's less what we're proposing than what it is
In-
now.
In the previous zoning code, technically that was only considered automotive. Or
No,
not
in the
automotive,
current-
it was considered, excuse me, time out. It became an auto zone overlay on the original district, but was considered what before that, Brian?
When we put the gas station in, that's when we changed.
No,
I think it was a mix of commercial and industrial.
Okay.
I have a question.
Current, Sam, currently,
Right, I just-
this zone comes all the way over here, way into that residential district.
Of East
This is a lot
Utica.
of the problems that we have.
No, but what I'm saying is, that pulls it back.
No, I get it, but, I mean, in the, what previously happened.
So that
in
it
the zoning code
concentrates it
is
more
that
where
it
you've
was-
got more
it was
commercial
amended.
uses that you're
Yeah.
seeing already. You have
Smoke shops
retail
on-
operations.
Smoke shops on Culver and Rockville, smoke shops on the corner of Bleecker and St. Anthony Street. I mean, those.
I also have a question.
That's over off of Culver.
Bleecker.
And then it
This
goes
is
into
Bleecker.
Bleecker,
Bleecker, up into
Culver.
Culver. and-
Right next to that restaurant.
Yeah, right.
But I got a question. I
Sure.
mean, this right here, this area is
Yep.
pretty close to a school.
Mohawk Street.
Yeah, there's a
It-
school right here.
The
Concord
state does have a requirement that the location of a dispensary cannot be within 500 feet
That's pretty
of a
close.
school or grounds. No, this just says it's allowed in the district, but where you can place it, you can't put it near the school. So
No.
So if
the
they-
state regulations are really gonna also help the city and locate where these
So
dispensaries
if,
go.
so if theoretically they did propose to put one right next to a school, the state is gonna say,
No,
even if it's allowed in our code, the state is gonna say no.
Regina, I had a question.
500 feet's not that far, is it?
It's what they have.
But, as Regina said, the reason we're making the comparison with the liquor stores is because liquor stores, as well as, when you get your liquor license, has the same restrictions, it's the same distance
Yeah,
requirements.
there is a liquor store on that, right in that area.
Yeah, and it's the
Those
same,
also didn't go against our zoning. Our zoning code was, you gotta understand, kind of messed up for a very long time. So would they have normally put a liquor store in the middle of a neighborhood? I mean,
Well,
I
it's
don't
been
know.
there, that's been there,
Right, but
that's
you
been
know,
there
look
for
at-
as long as I've been alive,
look
I
at how
remember.
liquor streets look now, you know what I mean? It's like more convenience stores, smoke shops, liquor stores, this,
You
that.
guys can
Would
share,
they
right?
have been, if that was considered a residential neighborhood, allowed in the zoning code? No, you might
It's a
say.
close-up of
I mean, to your point.
Stephanie, Jack, can I ask a question?
Like, but to your point, the state
Can I
has
ask
their
a question?
regulations. They definitely look at those and they check those.
Joe's got a question.
Steph, so
That I don't know.
with these two maps, that's the map we're
This is
kinda
the map
going-
as we're proposing.
that we want to propose. Is there a limit on how many stores can be placed within the whole city?
There is not a limit as to the number of stores that can be placed within the city, but there
Because
are.
originally, didn't they tell us there was?
Hold on,
Okay.
let her finish.
All right.
There isn't, but there's a distance requirement between
Stores.
between stores. And then the second component to that is when the city gets notice of a proposed intent to open, intent to have a marijuana dispensary, the city has the option to respond to that notice for the license. So we can submit a written opinion to New York State basically saying, yes, we're in support of this, no, we're not, and try to address it that way. But there's no actual limit to the number that can be within
Okay.
in the city.
And what is the distance between stores?
Regina, I know you have the numbers. What's the number between? Is it
1,000 feet
1,000 feet between each store?
between each store.
But, and I
What's that,
should,
5,000 feet?
And
I should-
200 feet from any
No,
house
how
of
many-
worship.
How many feet are in a mile?
Two-
and I guess one thing that, you know,
No.
Regina pointed out, a lot of the,
Oh, it's 5,000.
areas that we're proposing are in,
This looks good.
what do you call it, are in, shopping centers. So you're most likely not gonna have more than one within that shopping center. Really, the only area that would become more of a concern is in the downtown area, which, again, there's that 1,000 foot, so, you know, they're
Brian,
gonna
I-
be limited.
All right, no, stop.
Oh, so not-
Stop.
why would we
I'm gonna
even
go
need
around because
Everything is done.
let's go around. Everybody has a question. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Brian, if you could tell us, have there been people who have applied and now where they wanted is no longer the new proposed location? And why or why not? Like, what's the justification we're saying not that spot, if that is the case?
So there's two, there's.
Well, can you repeat the question again?
I was looking to see if people applied in a certain location and now in the new proposal, if they no longer can, if it's not acceptable of,
There's
if it's
two
not zoned for
locations
it.
that fall under your question. One is the northeast corner of Oriskany and Schuyler, which is the old piano store. Now it's a tattoo parlor. It was a tattoo parlor. They've submitted an application. That application was received ahead of the moratorium, so they can proceed right now, and they are on the planning board agenda for tomorrow. We are not suggesting that they be included within the district because of its proximity to the residential district. However, because they submitted their application ahead of your adoption, we hope, of these new districts, that can still go through. It would just affect future owner, a
Right.
change in use.
So,
The
And what was the
the
other
second
one?
location is 401 Herkimer Road. 401, there is an entity that has submitted a state notice to the municipality indicating that they would like to cite a marijuana dispensary at 401 Herkimer Road.
Where's that
It's right next to the
located?
Legion. It's on the corner of Van Rensselaer, I believe, and Herkimer
Right next
Road.
to-
oh, that's
Right
the old,
across from
the old
Humphrey
headquarters?
The old
Yeah.
bank, that old
Yeah,
bank.
that's
there.
not going there, though.
So that's the other one.
However, they have not submitted an application. They've only submitted the municipal notice.
But that would be against this. That, if
We are
this
suggesting
is
taking
this-
that location out, and
Okay.
in which case they would not be able to submit an
Okay,
application.
All right,
good. No.
No.
We wanna control this.
I'm
like
trying
it's
because
controlled
you're
it's
monopolizing it. That's why I'm trying to
He's
control it.
monopolizing it, but people have
All right,
questions, we
but-
can't just
all
stop
right.
people from asking questions.
All
if
right.
we're in a-
Raise your
okay,
hand if you got a
This is a
question.
whole, it's not the first word, second word,
Mr.
third
Bur-
word, fourth
Mr.
word,
Burmeister,
not
do you
at
have
large.
do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. There is a gentleman.
Now, if you do have a question, raise your hand within that question, all right?
There was a gentleman,
Join the fun.
called me up and he said he got a permit from the state. Do you know who that is? His name
I
is
believe you're
Peter?
referring to Air City Cannabis, who is looking to cite a dispensary in Mr. Carbone's building.
That's correct.
They submitted, back in October, a municipal notice that they intended to cite a dispensary there. I acknowledged that's within days of the clerk's office having received that notice. I acknowledged receipt of that and indicated in writing that they were required to then submit an application to the planning board. As of the date of this council's adoption of the moratorium, they had not submitted their application to the planning board, and as such, because of the moratorium, we can't. Judge, you're good. We can't, the planning board can't review it or approve it until the moratorium is lifted. That location is located within one of the districts that we're proposing.
Right, I did
So,
look at that on my map that you gave me.
Assuming this body eventually approves what we're suggesting, they can then go through and get the planning board approval.
And he won't be 1,000 feet from the piano shop?
He is not. It's a little bit beyond that.
Okay.
It's close.
I
but
know it's close, that's why I wanted to
No, I
ask.
checked that. It's
No.
close, but
So tonight, all we're gonna do is vote on
You,
a public hearing.
correct, and because the public hearing hasn't been called, you cannot vote on those pieces until that's been called.
So we're just calling for the public hearing.
Okay,
So, wait, one.
very good.
No, I asked
All right,
really
go on.
quickly.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? How is anybody even able to apply for an application if there's a moratorium? If they don't know, okay, so then, how didn't you just say earlier that somebody, they applied
submitted
and
the
said pen-
application.
Right, but how? If there's a moratorium, how is anybody even supposed to apply not knowing what the parameters are? I mean, don't you think that there should have been a moratorium on that? Because they're applying for a permit based on something that could be
the
changed from the
moratorium that you
original permit.
adopted stated that the planning board could not approve
Right,
any
but how is somebody
application.
even supposed to apply if they don't know what the parameters are to even apply for the?
That's why the application hasn't been heard.
But how do you apply for something not knowing what the application even says?
They applied before the moratorium.
No, he just said that they
No,
didn't.
one came in after.
So that's what I'm saying,
Their
how are
city
we
did
even
not.
accepting applications if they don't know how they're gonna apply their business?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask
to
the
s-
applicant that. I can't answer for the applicant.
But how are the applications even being handed out, knowing that there was a moratorium? So that's actually false.
Applications don't
They're-
get handed out.
they're online.
Applications are online.
So how is anybody even supposed to apply if a moratorium is there? That means you don't even
They
have
were
the.
informed of the moratorium, and they were informed that because of the moratorium, the planning board would not review it or approve it
So
until
now
such
you're
time
saying,
as the moratorium was not in place any longer.
but what you're saying is that now you've got a pending application based on what
I
we
don't have a
do.
pending application.
Some people submitted stuff
Nothing's
with the
pending
state
about
though,
it.
right?
Where is the application?
Some people submitted it through the state, like through OCM, they had
No,
certain
we're
addresses
talking about
down.
literally against our planning board right now.
You're talking about two separate applications, one from the state and one from the city.
I get that, but we have one from the city, you just said earlier, unless I misheard you.
They sent it in, it has not been heard and will not be heard until the moratorium is no longer in place, and the applicant has been made aware of that.
Yeah, but why do we even have applications online for them to fill out?
To make things easier. Every community has their applications
All
online.
right. Frank, do you have a question?
Yeah, the two that have already been approved, if the state don't approve of them, it doesn't matter that we approve it, right?
So typically, for the most part, when they come to the planning board, they're already in the initial process of getting their license from New York State. Usually by the time that we're almost done and planning board is ready to approve, they usually are ready to grant that.
So those two that already approved. they got
There's
it?
only been one that's approved, is
No, but
exit
but
31.
But there's two that, but there's before,
The two that are before, my understanding is they have their approvals from New York State, and they're just waiting for us to,
so we
Give
can't
them
do
this-
nothing about that because the state approved it. All right.
So,
Dennis, any questions?
Well, I kind of understand why applications are going in now, because all you're gonna do is, review them later on anyway.
Correct.
Once the moratorium's over, so you're gonna have to deny a lot of people, right, and just put them in now. But you're gonna probably just go through the applications and decide which ones are approvable? Is that what you're gonna do?
Well, at this point, any application that's submitted is put on hold because of the moratorium.
Right.
It's not reviewed, it's not heard, it's not, there's a public hearing. They require a special use permit, that requires a public hearing. There's no public hearing that's been scheduled for any of these that were submitted after the moratorium.
Do you know how many
They're all
applications?
on hold.
You say you don't know how many applications are coming in?
we can never predict how many applications are coming in, but we know that there's one application that is ready to go, that as soon as the moratorium is over,
Okay,
they want to be heard.
all right, I understand it.
so am I correct in saying that within a mile, you could have 5 smoke shops? Technically, I'm not saying you would, but by law, you said 1,000 feet, there's 5,280 feet in a mile. So you could technically, in a mile district, you can have 5 smoke shops.
Yeah, but that assumes that the districts are
No.
a mile in length, and I don't know that any of those are a mile in length.
Except maybe
So what
the
you're
downtown
asking
area.
isn't really realistic.
Well, you're saying within, you open one here, and you gotta do 1,000 feet, and then you can
But
open
they've
another
gotta be in
one.
those districts, and I don't think any one of those districts is a mile long.
In other words, they don't have enough for 5.
Okay. All right, I'm just checking, I mean, I'm going by what you said. You said 1,000 feet, now, okay, you're saying by the district, so, okay.
Go ahead, Art.
You know, I was looking at the map, I see Oneida Square, that's gonna be, we have so many issues there now. Why would we allow something to go there in the first place? And it's kinda close to our church, ain't it? And all the homeless people are in that area, and, I mean, we're just adding fuel to the fire, I guess.
Again, in terms of the state's requirements, we didn't base our district's
Taylor?
outline to the state's requirements. The state's gonna view that separately on their own and judge whether they can issue their own permit. No, not necessarily, but again, we were focused on commercial areas, commercial and industrial areas.
You got done?
I'm done.
Same guy, everything?
No, I got nothing.
Mike, do you have anything from the mayor on this?
Not really. I mean, we're pretty confident that that's a good starting point, where we kind of need to be. They worked hard on it. It's not perfect, but, there's, within the regulations, there's really not a situation where it's gonna be perfect.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you, everybody, thank you.
I have one more question.
Oh, please.
Mr. Thomas, is there a limit, once everything gets rolling, how many we're limited to? I mean, is there gonna be like, we can have 15, we can have 22, we can have 38?
Again, I think Stephanie addressed this earlier. There's no limit in terms of the state's regulations.
It's just gonna be in footage from one to the other?
Correct.
And I guess
Which will-
theoretically, at some
it's
point.
self-limiting.
The state could maybe impose their own restrictions, but that would be up to the state. But right now, there isn't.
Thank you.
I had one question on that, just off of Mr. Burmaster. So we can't put a limit on how many smoke shops are in the city?
You cannot.
We can't,
The state can open.
anything,
What I'm saying is that the state determines as part of their licensing that they're only gonna issue 5 licenses to the city of Utica or 20 licenses to the state of New York. That's per the state, and the state can, we're not gonna get involved in that.
Keep in mind, the city opted into this.
I'm tracking,
We
I got it.
didn't opt into it, the mayor, the previous mayor did.
Okay.
Well, regardless, the city is opted in.
I mean, don't say that
Okay.
we did this, I didn't.
So, all right, so I'm gonna move to end this committee to hold. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got a 5-minute break, 10-minute.
It's legislation to be discussed in our caucus. I'll start with the first ordinance, is rescind of ordinance 25 from Councilman Beatrice. Councilman Beatrice, would you like to speak about this?
Can I just have some,
This is about, so we passed, last year, we did, an ordinance for the Order of the Hibernians. They were putting the sign up, for the first mayor, and they're not able to do it at that location. They're gonna do it at the Irish, community, the Irish Club. And that's all this is. We're doing that, they're doing that sign that we approved over at that location.
Anybody got a problem with that? Can we make that full council for you
Yeah, it was
too?
full council last time we passed it, so yeah, I
Yeah.
got no problem with that.
Thank you. Second one is the placement of the sign. That's the same thing you just talked about, Joe?
Yes.
We'll make that full council as well?
Yes, that's fine.
Yep.
This is the sign right here too.
Here it is.
Yep.
Very good. Number 3 is a proclamation for the Lions Club. Councilman Williamson, would you like to talk about this?
Yeah, on Saturday, they're having their 100th year dinner over on Burstone Road, so I'll be presenting this. And if we could, make it full council.
Any questions? Thank you. Ordinance number 4, it's a residency waiver submitted by myself and Williamson. Ordinance waiver and residency requirement for the position of parks laborer. I'm not too sure what this is all about.
This gentleman here is, I believe, from West Winfield, and he's applying for this job. And we're short always help, and they need help, and, yes, we authorized it for him to get this job, so, I don't have a problem with this.
I was just gonna say, if I could just add, I believe he's fairly young.
Yes.
I wanna say he's either 19 or 20.
Yes,
He's still
20.
living at home with his parents.
Yes.
So,
And if I'm not mistaken, we don't really have a lot of people knocking our doors down to work in the parks. And I know Rocco wants all the grass cut, so.
and I
mean,
believe, from speaking with, Dave Short, he said he was pretty qualified and seems eager to work, and
I know the family well. He's a very educated kid.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, the DPW commissioner and deputy commissioner stated they had multiple interviews, people didn't show up. This is the person that showed up. And we're continuing to increase our efforts to actually communicate with the community that positions are open in Utica. We're not openly advertising outside the city, but the job postings are online. But as you could see, I added another person to the administration this week. We'll discuss that at the main meeting. It's another person from Utica. So this administration continues to add people who live in Utica, but this was a necessity by the Parks Department.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I just had one question. So is this isn't opening it up to anybody outside the city who wants to work for the city? This is a one-time?
Yeah, they all are. Yeah, they're it's a necessary.
All right, so we're just not gonna open up all the Parks Department to anybody, so this is a specific job?
No,
or
we're
unless,
specific-
unless
No.
Yeah.
This is not asking the council to do that. This is, they interviewed a bunch of different people. Certain people didn't show up. A couple of people were from Utica. They didn't show up. So this is the person who actually came to the interview. and they need to fill a position now, so this one's getting filled by this person, if waived. That's just how it's gonna work.
Thank you. Number 5 is a resolution to maintain the highway lighting. It's a resolution to maintain highway lighting, PIN 2134.57, Route 5, French Road intersection, bridge repairs, City of Utica, Oneida County. I'm not too sure about this. Would you like to speak about it, Mayor?
So I can comment. So these are pretty standard. Typically with the state DOT, usually whenever there's a specific highway project, typically we send a contract to maintain the lighting thereafter. We've done these a number of times before. I think the 2 locations are obviously the French Road and then North Utica. Everything's already been put in. It's just a matter of signing the contract so that we can maintain the lighting.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I do have a question on that. On maintaining it, does that mean that if the whole system goes down, we'd be responsible for replacing the system and the lighting, or just changing light bulbs, or what's it mean?
There are lights.
Right.
Yeah, I
Like
believe.
it was part of the reconstruction project, so they own.
So
all
we
the
take
buildings.
ownership of the whole thing?
Just like a lot, you did, yeah, just like the ones you did prior. Same thing with the Ballards. Remember they gave us those Ballards years back when you were.
Okay, because I know it could get expensive at times if the,
Yeah.
this is a bit of a, okay.
I know I'm gonna, but the next one, you're talking about underneath the bridge where there hasn't been any lights for a long time in North Utica? Number 6. You're talking about the underneath the bridge? Is that what we're talking about? Where it's always dark and there's,
To be honest, I'm not sure. Maybe.
Hang on, let me just pull the legislation here so we can look at the addresses. Where's 5? Yeah, I think it is. Just don't want to speak.
I don't even think they put lights there yet, have they? Or they did they have lights? I don't know.
Okay.
It looks according to this, they're going to be adding 3 new highway lights.
Yeah, this is the work they just completed on North Genesee Street
Right.
and the French Road interchange that they literally just completed as well, where they had it all one lane on both sides on Route 12. This is standard. They take it over while they're building it. They repair the lights, install new equipment, but then they get turned back over to the city to maintain. We maintain all the lights on that strip of Route 12, likewise on North Genesee Street.
Thank you. Any other questions? We're going to go on to number 7, creating a revenue advisory committee, sponsored by Councilwoman Colesmo-Tessa. Would you like to speak on this?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to put this in committee.
Second.
What are they putting through?
Ordinance number 7.
Any other questions on it?
Oh, there it is, the revenue.
Thank you. Number 8 is amending sewer rents. I see this came down today. It's rents that we're going to be incorporated in a water bill, I assume. Am I not mistaken?
Correct. I can speak to this. This is a piece of information here to speak to, that's why I can't help this thing, sorry. On the water bill, there is local sewer charge, okay? It's usually, depending on your bill, around like $15 or $16, depending on how much money you spend in water, because it is a portion. When we passed the budget, sewers budgeted that we would need $4.16 million. in sewer rents to cover over 4 million, which was last year, to cover the EFC, the stormwater sewer separation work we're always doing. We're always passing the work we do on the sewers. Unfortunately, I wanted to double check to make sure that that would be enough to cover the new debt they need to bring in for the actual sewer reconstruction. And the new budget director and one of the controller's office deputy controllers worked with Mohawk Valley Water Authority and found that even though last year and the year before the sewer rents were set at $4 million, they were only bringing in, based on our current rates, $3.8 million. So the increase that we're requesting will bring that up to an estimated, depending on water usage, $4 million, which isn't even what we needed to cover, but we don't want to ask for any more at this time. It equates to a 6% increase in the sewer rates, okay, the local sewer rates, which this isn't like the or the property tax increase. 6% increase will equate to about $1.62 over the course of 3 months. So this is a very minimal change. I know the public is watching, but this is to meet the actual sewer reconstruction funding that we have to continue to do, which is also state mandated because we have a lot of stormwater and sewage separation projects going on.
So we're gonna have to go back and address this to try to make up the difference that we.
Well, so ordinance number 8 addresses this now and should bring it up to about 4 million, which if we left it like that for this year would be okay, but we may have to. We're gonna have to meet again with the water board to understand why for the past couple of years, the rates that were ordained in our code weren't even bringing the right amount in that was budgeted for in the last 3 or 4 budgets in the sewer department. So that's a whole separate issue, but I'm requesting that we pass this now, if possible. It does require unanimous because the water board does bill quarterly. So if we miss a billing cycle, it's not like this is an immediate change, they bill quarterly. So then we need to continue the stormwater sewage separation projects that we are mandated to continue.
So this is gonna affect the bill by about $7 per year, thereabouts,
Possibly.
depending on the water
Yeah,
use.
it's depending on water usage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Actually less, probably 6, but yeah, maybe, yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 9, it's a ordinance for rescinding and replacing Chapter 2-28 entitled Records. Now let it be ordained that the City of Utica Common Council does hereby rescind and replace Chapter 2-28 of the City of Utica Code of Ordinance. Would you?
So I can address that. So I gave the council 2 options, as I previously mentioned that I would. I believe both options are in here. Proposed ordinance number 9 and proposed ordinance number 10. I know these were just sent down today. I'm obviously anticipating that the council will put them in committee to review them and further discuss. What I did do, with respect to option 1, the rescind and replace, the replacements are not that major, as far as I took a lot out, but I kept some things that were there and it wasn't substantial. As far as option 2, there were significant changes made, and what I did do is provided the clerks with a red line version for the council to look at. I know they didn't print it out, just not to use paper, but they do have a red line version so you can actually see the changes that were made. They were pretty substantial with respect to option 2. I can address any questions, but I know, like I said, these were submitted today, and I'm fully anticipating the council putting them into committee to be addressed at a later date.
I'll second it.
I have one question for you. What would you recommend, option 1 or option 2?
It's really up to you. one option, option one, rescinds most of the ordinance, and would allow us to proceed forward with a contract for city towing. Option two, would continue the tow rotation list, with a significant number of changes that need to be addressed in order to go forward.
Like,
But,
do you want me to speak to it as well?
Please.
All right, so I can explain why we're here. So January 2nd, if everyone remembers, there was a lot of news about the tow rotation operators being very aggravated that there was a contract eliminating tow rotation. That afternoon, I looked at the contract, and it was signed early November last year. I think it was November last year, right?
end of November.
Apparently it was set when it was signed to go into effect January 2nd, which obviously was my first day as mayor, right? So I met with Corporation Counsel and said, how could we have a contract with an operator that was RFP'd out without rescinding the code of ordinances which establishes a tow rotation, right? You can't have one, it's one or the other. So effectively, what we're doing right now is what should have happened originally. The council would have had to have chosen whether they wanted to get rid of the tow rotation and go with an RFP, or keep the tow rotation and fix the problems we were experiencing with overcharging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So here we are now, after the fact. We do have a signed contract with somebody who did an RFP and fulfilled a request for that proposal, and they entered into an agreement with the city. But the tow rotation still sits on the books. If the council decides to rescind that, okay, the tow rotation, then we utilize the contract that's signed. However, if the council decides to keep the tow rotation, then I will have to deal with the ramifications of figuring out how to resolve the fact that we have that contract, because I'm gonna honor what's in the code over something that was RFP'd without dealing with the code first. Does that make sense? So that's why the council, I'm not asking the council to pick between an RFP or not. I'm saying to the council, the administration saying to the council, this probably should have been done first, so let's figure this out. If the council wants to keep the tow rotation and fix the issues with the overcharging, keep it and fix the issues with the overcharging. If for some crazy reason you want to rescind the whole thing and get rid of the rotation, then we have the other option as well. Point blank, council's decision. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Go ahead, Councilman Beatrice.
Currently, we're using a rotation. Is that what we're doing right now?
Yes.
We're doing
yes.
that.
On January 2nd, I said we are going to utilize what is in the code of ordinances.
Okay.
Not the RFP.
Jack, can we or clerk, can we schedule a meeting, committee meeting of the whole? Maybe next Wednesday or 5 o'clock before our next meeting, or, you know, we don't have to have everything at 5 o'clock before a meeting. We can have a meeting anytime we want. So we need to, this is a serious issue here. We need to have a meeting where we can just discuss this one topic and come up with a solution. So whatever good with everybody, I'd like to schedule a meeting. Clerk, maybe send something out tomorrow, and then everybody be courteous and respond what's good for you guys, and let's get this done.
Wednesday. Everybody fine with next Wednesday at 5?
I have a meeting at 6. I can't make 5. I'm sorry.
Okay, it doesn't have to be Wednesday. It could be any time.
We could do Tuesday, we could do Thursday, we could do Wednesday morning.
Yeah, well,
Can't wait 2 weeks.
well, we could do it at the next meeting,
Well,
but I mean, it's 2 weeks away, and
it'd be
and
nice
we
to have
always.
Mayor, is there an issue with 2 weeks away?
No, I do want it kind of resolved soon, only
Right.
because this kind of started last November without
Right.
any of us knowing, the council, you know, I mean, so,
And if I could just speak to the delay, obviously with the budget, there was other things that were
yeah.
pressing that needed to be taken care of. And you'll notice when you look through, I mean, the one option has substantial changes that, you know, to the ordinance.
Well, can we do it tonight after the meeting?
No,
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 yeah, you
no.
can't.
you have to give proper notice.
no, you gotta get notice.
But I'm good with any day next week, even earlier Wednesday, just, I have a meeting
Okay.
at 6 o'clock that I
How
have
about
to
4
go
o'clock
to.
on Wednesday, next Wednesday?
Yeah, I'm whatever you guys want.
That's fine with me.
Let's schedule it for 4 o'clock next Wednesday then, all right?
So I make a motion to put it in the committee.
Yep,
I'll
okay.
second it.
Ju-
Both options.
Right.
Any other questions?
Councilperson Burmaster, I guess this more goes to our rules of order. So we have legislation that's in our pre-meeting, okay? Legislation that's never been committed before, legislation that has been introduced. Our pre-meeting, after going over our rules, considers as a committee of the whole, a pre-meeting, so on and so forth. So I was just looking at the actual rules of order, and it says when new legislation is submitted to the clerk, the sponsor of the legislation may request at the time of submission and in written notice to the clerk, the legislation be placed into the pre-meeting conference agenda, which according to these rules of order means that you don't have to introduce new legislation to the floor at that time. You can introduce it at a pre-meeting. So then if you look at the pre-meeting, and I'm just going back on this because it's a lot of this is not making sense to me, and I'm trying to make sense of it. It says the members of the Common Council shall meet prior to each regular and special meeting. The meeting shall be chaired by the majority leader and/or council person. The pre-meeting conference is the purpose of discussing and reviewing new legislation that is in the committee of the whole, and any other matters regarding city business issues or concerns. So according to that, even by our last meeting, when I introduced a piece of legislation that considered our rules of order and so on and so forth with the standing committee, these rules kind of contradict themselves, and I think there needs to be some clarification. So, and it is confusing with the way you read it. So, last meeting, I didn't have to introduce it to the floor. I could have sent, what I did, sent it to the clerk, and it could have stayed in the pre-meeting, not had to be introduced, because technically your pre-meeting serves as a committee of the whole and as a pre-meeting. So how do you introduce legislation to the committee of the whole and then also can discuss it at the pre-meeting on its first time as an introduction?
Well, we're introducing it at the pre-meeting here, and now we're putting it in the meeting to hold a discussion.
Right,
I
but
don't
the
see that being an issue.
last time that I had the legislation for the rules of order, it was introduced to the floor. But I was told that it had to be introduced to the floor and even to discuss in our pre-meeting. So according to that, based on those rules, our pre-meeting serves as a committee of the whole. Therefore, when I submitted the legislation to the clerk, it should have went to the pre-meeting.
No.
So Judge, then
No.
our rules need to be changed.
Are you asking a question?
I'm asking a
I'm
question.
saying to you, the Committee of the Whole is a body that meets to conference. It has no power whatsoever regarding the legislation. None. It just discusses legislation. You have no power until you have a meeting. When you have a meeting, everything you do there is according to the second-class citizen law or the charter. You introduce any legislation, new or otherwise, at a meeting. When you introduce a legislation, you make a motion to consider the legislation. If you vote on it and it has one negative vote, it's defeated. If the motion to put it in committee is made, it needs 5 votes. That's what happened with your legislation.
Judge, but we didn't make a motion to
just a
introduce,
minute.
we didn't
Don't
make a motion to
don't talk
discuss any
over
of
me.
these pieces.
Don't talk over me.
I'm not talking over
Don't
you, but
talk
it's gotta
over
make
me.
sense.
When you make a motion to put it in committee, you needed a second. Then they called for a vote. The vote was 5-4, I think, against put it in committee. Therefore, it didn't exist anymore. Here tonight, you got new legislation, and you have proposed legislation to rescind an old ordinance and replace it with a new ordinance, and that would need a motion at the meeting, what you want to do with it. If you refer it to committee, the same procedure that happened with yours, there has to be somebody moves each one of these pieces of legislation. There has to be a second, and it needs 5 votes to go to committee. That's it.
Okay, so
Those are the rules.
Councilman Beatrice, did you have to make a motion to introduce ordinance number 1 that you had in the pre-meeting? Or was that done by way of the clerk?
Well, I was
It was
talked about
already
it.
it was already in the pre-meeting. That's what I'm saying, it becomes contradictory, because, yes, he needs a motion and a second to introduce it to the floor, but he didn't need a motion and a second to have it on the agenda for the pre-meeting. which hence the reason that if I introduce that legislation for the standing committees, according to what the rules say, is that the introduction of new legislation goes to our clerk and gets placed on the pre-meeting agenda. According to also the rules of order, it says that our pre-meeting is also serves as a purpose of the committee of the whole. So that would mean that each piece of legislation has to make a motion and a second to introduce. If not, those rules of order need to be changed.
Need a
Because
motion on
I
every,
could-
you
I
need a
could-
motion on everything
I-
to introduce it.
I could send that legislation to the clerk again,
I'm not
and it could
gonna
be on the agenda for the pre-meeting. I don't understand how that doesn't make sense.
You've been here for.
I have, and it's
How many
very,
years?
very, very, very
you-
confusing.
Look, when you.
Judge,
you
point
mu-
of
you know,
order.
this
Councilman
council must
Beatrice have to
understand-
introduce
you
this
must
legislation with a
understand,
motion and a second.
You have no power outside this room and
What
at a
does
regular
this
meeting.
have to do with
Number
anything?
one. You can't go order signs and do all that sort of stuff. You can't do anything because, and that's what happened with the.
Judge,
little. wait.
point of order.
That's what
Point of
happened with
order
the
on
little
you.
circle.
Did-
Now, wait a
did
minute,
Councilman
don't
Be-
talk over me.
Judge, but you're not making
Why
sense
don't you
on what I'm
listen?
asking.
I
Answer
am
the
your
question.
attorney. Listen to what I'm saying.
Answer the question,
You
then.
introduced a piece of legislation. It
Answer the
did
question.
not get referred to committee. It needs 5 votes. You didn't get it. That's it. Tonight,
Judge.
you have 2 options.
Councilman
Tonight, you
Beatrice,
have to decide,
Did you make a motion and a second
Just
to
a
put this
second.
in the pre-meeting?
what the mayor
Oh, you did
is
when?
asking.
We didn't take a vote.
The mayor
It was
has,
on the pre-meeting
before
agenda.
him, will you stop
Point of
talking
order.
while I'm talking?
The judge has the
Mr.
floor.
President? Will you tell her that not to talk when I'm talking? Mr. Chairman? You the chairman?
Yeah, I just called the point of order, and I said you had the floor. Do
I
not-
had the floor.
Yes, you do.
The mayor of the city of Utica has a problem. We discussed that at an executive session. So we shouldn't be discussing that now. That's number one. Number two, what is being proposed here is a 2-part situation because the executive has to do one thing, because he has the only power to do that, and the legislature has to do the other thing, because the other thing that's being proposed tonight should have been done prior to November. Wasn't done. So that makes something that would happen in violation of an ordinance at the time it was done probably illegal. And of course, a contract was signed, and we won't go into the facts of that. Now, I've looked at these proposals and the options that have been given to you by the Assistant Corporation Counsel, Mr. Giorgio. This is strictly a legislative decision about whether you want to keep the rotation matter or not. And if you keep the rotation matter, should you do it with a better ordinance than the one that existed? So that's what you have before you. You have the motion to put in committee an ordinance to rescind. Needs 5 votes to go to committee. Then you have an ordinance to amend that which exists and will no longer exist if you pass the rescission ordinance. Is that, Mr. Mayor, in keeping what your thoughts are?
Yes, because I can't
Okay.
move forward without.
That's
that.
all I have to say about that matter. Thank you very much.
What's that?
Is that my question?
I'm not sure, but just,
It needs to be clear.
I'm a guest now. I'm not-
So we've had a motion for.
I don't run the show here, so.
So we're gonna put 9 and 10, and we're gonna make motions.
Majority Leader Burmaster, that had nothing to do with the question that I had. I understand that you have to make a motion in a second to put something in the committee of the whole. I'm well aware of that. What I was stating is that if you look at your rules of order, it says introduction of new legislation be submitted to the city clerk. The city clerk put it on the agenda in the pre-meeting. According to your rules at the pre-meeting also serves as a pre-meeting and a committee of the whole. Therefore, meaning that you could still discuss this legislation and it doesn't have to be introduced to the floor at the same time. That needs to be clarified and written notice by our council attorney. Because technically, the legislation that I introduced last time didn't need to be introduced to the floor. It could have served its purpose in the committee, in the pre-meeting, which needs to be clarified, because I've been given 7 different rules on how legislation gets submitted, and yet Councilman Councilman Beatrice just submits this legislation, and he's able to discuss it in the pre-meeting. So technically, he doesn't even have to introduce this to committee of the whole. It could stay in the pre-meeting and be discussed for the next 7 meetings.
Yes, but if nobody wanted to put it in there, they would have said no and it would have been
It could've-
gone.
No, it would have been gone. It could actually, according to their rules, stay in the pre-meeting.
Committee of the whole has no power. I keep telling you that over and over. When you're in the committee of the whole, you have no power. You're not acting as a legislature. You only have power when the president calls the meeting. Then when you discuss anything you do then is according to the law.
I don't disagree with Judge Garamone at any point in time
You
at that.
cannot
But what I'm
make the
saying is
committee
that
of the whole something that's not.
you could still have the opportunity, according to their rules, from what I'm reading, because it contradicts itself in both stands, you can actually discuss your legislation without making any motion, and it stays in the pre-meeting. You don't have to introduce this legislation to the floor.
What good would it have been anyways? As soon as you brought it out, they
Councilwoman,
weren't going to
just a
vote
It
on
minute.
it.
doesn't matter, because I
Mr.
would have the
President,
opportunity to discuss
Mr.
it.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Does that make sense?
when your legislation was introduced, all one of the majority had to do was make a motion to introduce the legislation that you sponsored. And if it got 5 votes, it would be introduced. Then they'd call for a vote.
Yeah, but right,
You
why
would
is it on the
have, you would have
meeting?
lost because you had 5
guys
people
aren't-
against it to begin with. So
Judge.
why are you making a big deal out of this?
Judge, then can you answer me-
The legislation was dead from the
Can you answer me
beginning.
one question then? How does legislation get introduced into the
Oh, I-
pre-meeting to
I-
discuss? I don't
I
understand
think you ought to
that.
go to law school and then get a degree.
Judge, you still haven't
come-
answered my question. You still haven't answered my question. How does legislation get in the pre-meeting to be discussed? I want to know that.
We just
I
did
thought you,
that.
sir-
We just did that.
Bob,
We just did that.
Bob.
If we can move on, I have a
if
question for
you
them.
did not introduce this legislation to the floor yet, what happens to this piece? Does it stay in the pre-meeting?
Well, we know it's gonna come out of the.
Right, but
pre-meeting.
does it stay in the pre-meeting if you don't make any motions to move this to the floor? Does this stay in the pre-meeting?
No,
Why?
because it doesn't exist.
How
It's got-
doesn't it exist?
It's gotta be either put in committee, or it's gonna be disposed of.
How is it disposed then? If you're,
Because you can't just leave a piece of legislation.
so then how was I
for-
not given the opportunity to discuss it in the pre-meeting?
Pardon? I didn't understand that question.
I don't know how you guys don't understand it. You guys don't even understand your own rules. That's the problem.
My last word to you, Councilwoman, when
did it
the
last time.
7 o'clock comes and these 2 pieces of legislation comes, you can make whatever motions you want. You can make a motion, put it in committee, get 5 votes, it goes to committee. Or you could ask to vote on it. If you vote on it and it doesn't have 9 votes, it's defeated. What more can I tell you? This
you.
is just discussion period. Until 7 o'clock, nothing really means anything.
Thank you.
I've-
Councilman Aiello?
Thank you. Deputy Chief Ed Noonan, if I could call on you. We were discussing a piece of legislation about the parking. And I didn't know if you, people had questions about the parking, of whether it was rescinding, and did you have a chance to look it over by chance?
The one on.
Broad, yeah.
Yep.
Would you be able to take the floor over and let us know why that came up?
Sure.
Thank you.
So when the hospital was being constructed and then completed, our traffic division was tasked with doing a traffic survey, a study of the whole area surrounding the hospital. They actually came up with a pretty significant plan and changes going forward. We're trying to introduce it in small pieces so it's not overwhelming to everybody, but this is like the second piece of that plan. On that block of Broadway, there now is a bus stop. There's a lot of traffic. We're just trying to free up and make it safe for the free flow of traffic. And for people who get on and off the bus, and for the bus to be able to stop and pick up and drop off people on the western side of Broadway. That pertains to that particular piece of legislation. And there'll be more pieces going forward every couple weeks.
So there's no parking meters going in that area if you're doing parking meters down the road?
That would just be to be determined after. Right now they have to execute the actual parking and no parking plan they had in and around the hospital for safety reasons. And
Okay.
just access for busing, just like you stated.
Any other questions for Deputy Chief? We'll go on to proposition number 11. It was a resolution approving the granting a permanent easement to National Grid and Verizon at Valley View Golf Course.
I can let our new deputy city engineer talk on that. Again, I apologize for the lateness. I just got this, as did the engineering department, but I know they need it. But I will let him talk on that. But it's pretty standard to grant these easements to National Grid.
And this easement is holding up the rest of the construction for parking lot, which is being done, and we need to get that scheduled. So the construction, they say, is 3 weeks after it goes in for approval, it's scheduled. We're waiting on time.
Excuse me, we can't hear it over here. There's a microphone on the table.
I don't know. I'm new here.
Can you introduce yourself?
Well, so, all right, so hang on. So I have the new deputy city engineer here to introduce him at the meeting during the department head review. But obviously, he's being asked a question prior, which is fine, he's prepared for it, but this is Nick Breidenbecker. Just explain the easement. I can also.
This is the microphone.
Yeah, that's the microphone for the table. I can also talk about the historical issue we had with the Valley View project, which was started last year. But if you speak to just the easement, please do. Thank you.
Yeah.
All
We
right.
are waiting for this easement to be approved so that we can continue on with National Grid. So it takes 3 weeks to get on the schedule. We're running behind on getting our paving done. And we need to be scheduled so that we can continue on with our parking, which is already being done.
In the parking lot of Valley View, you mean?
At Valley View. Also, it's holding up the sidewalk at Valley View, as we have to move the main line poles and then start digging to go underground. And we can't do any of that work until, we can't de-energize the power until we have all the new service hooked up. So in order to do this, we need this easement so we can put our new pole in, run our new electric, so we can energize our current pole system, or main line, as it is called.
Well, thank you and welcome aboard.
Yeah, so he's talking specific to the easement. The problem with this is, right, but the problem here is, this is the Valley View renovation project, okay? Last year, engineering had multiple meetings with not only National Grid, but the contractors and the construction companies to figure out where they're gonna put the line. They didn't finalize where the line was gonna go until earlier this year, when National Grid finally had us on the schedule to come and plot out where they could put it. And we have to wait for them to get a map for the easement. It's not like we draw this up and we have our guys draw it up. They literally wait till the last minute and give us the easement map. Which these National Grid easements, we say we're always behind and it's last minute. Typically that's because we're behind and we're not operating fast enough and giving the council something, right? These problems are National Grid literally gave us the map this week, right? And the construction on the parking lot needs to start now because it's the spring. So it's just where we are with it. And it's an easement. They're literally just running a new line. This isn't like some easement where we're going under someone's house. This is Valley View. They have to have the easement to construct a new line,
So
period.
once we pass the easement, did they give you a start date?
It schedules 3 weeks after
We grant the easement.
grant the easement, then it takes 3 weeks to just get the schedule. And the schedule could be a month from then. We don't know.
So we're real far behind.
So
But the
we're-
further we delay in
then we
granting the
get even farther
easement,
behind.
They won't put us on their construction schedule until they have their easement.
And they can
And we
take
can't grant
3
the
months or
easement
3 weeks.
until they give us the map. So here we are. Yeah.
So can golfers still park in the parking lot
Yes.
up there?
Yes.
They did today.
And they have been, yep. This is on the new work that's on the very corner.
yeah, it's the corner
The very
of,
corner.
The new building is.
Well, the new building, but this is the corner of the Parkway and Valley View, right on the corner.
Okay, I'm tracking, I got it.
yeah.
And it's,
Okay, any other questions on that?
I'm good with it.
And we discussed and committee, we're pulling out ordinance number 5 and ordinance number 9 and number 3. Any questions on,
11 and 13, or what are we doing with them? They're going to committee?
they remained in committee. Any other questions?
It's hard with everything else going on.
Well, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Order.
He's in your council district. He's in your council district too.
All the needles.
So you don't want to have a cigarette meeting, huh? You want like,
Yeah, they're getting the parts. Because all
We've
of them
always
got
had
a rope.
cigarettes.
Some, not all of them.
You don't talk to me, don't worry.
Because my guys,
No.
they'll be there
You
talking
gotta
about
go.
that.
You gotta go. All right, I won't bug you then. That's what I'm saying. If they got stress, I understand. All right, no problem.
Deputy Chief.
Old Baker's Greenhouse.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing?
That's all. Well, nothing, but it's like a derelict.
Right, they're all gone.
Where's your head on?
Shit candy there.
This meeting will come to order.
I'll see you tomorrow. No, Friday. I'll work out with them.
Where's Candy's producing?
The city clerk will call roll.
You know what else I like? Dots.
Aiello, Burmaster, Batar, Carcone, Irvin, Beatrice, Williamson, Colosimo Testa, Lemetigo, Druzzi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the Common Council, and also a special moment of silence for the two fallen police officers in Syracuse this past week.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does the chair hear a motion and a second to dispense with the reading of minutes from the previous meeting?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a public hearing on the sale of Mulberry Street and the sale of Steuben Street and Leah Street. Anyone here to speak on the public hearing? Nope. Okay. We do have people signed up to speak on comment period. So, Jared Tuff. Jared, the Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3-244 Public Comment Period. Are you in agreement?
Yes,
Please state your name.
Jared Tuff,
Thank you, Jared.
and I have a stopwatch.
Yeah, 3 minutes. Thank you, buddy.
Hi, everybody. I just want to talk about 3 sensitive subjects real quick. Might ruffle some feathers, but of course, the first one is racism. We have a good committee here. You know, everyone has a nice persona of who they are. Katie, you know, you seem very compassionate. You know, Samantha, you justifiable. Jack, you seem you're there for the people. But when it comes to the subject of racism and the displacement and gentrification that's going on in the city, everyone's quiet as church mice. You know, you don't hear anything, no rebuttals, no anything. And even when the guy, Andrew, last time I was here, he spoke about, you know, the One Earth and the recreation, everyone had a lot of rebuttals. Did you put in a proposal? We had the same thing down there, but it seems like no one wants to do anything, like there really isn't any racism that's going on in the city. And we, you know, it's hard to believe, and you know, this is a very tough subject. And I just want to say, I don't want anyone to think just because I'm talking about racism that I'm racist. I'm not. I even have a white ear in my blood. I'm the 13th descendant of Roger Ludlow. If you look him up, he was the first person to write the American laws from England, which makes me a direct descendant of King Edward. So I have some, you know, and I'm originally, my native land is from here. You know, I'm Indian, of course, Native American. And, you know, I just want to say, you know, that just because we have a few black people here, you know, they still can, you know, harm people, you know, like back in the days when the war was against the Confederate and the Yankees, you had black people fighting to stay slaves. They had Stockholm Syndrome. And I see a lot of that today, you know, they're not, you know, they either don't say anything or they do things to harm the black community. And that's not right. So I just would like, you know, you guys to really think about that we want some justice here for the black race here, you know, in employment, housing. We're getting murdered. There's nothing left here. But the Bosnians were easy to melt right in, and they're working right along with the regular Caucasians. And also the other subject is, this is kind of sensitive, I'm hearing that Mayor Galimi is having some type of affair with the secretary, Jade.
What the hell?
Yeah,
No,
point of order.
hang on.
Point of order.
Hang on.
No.
And that he gave her a
Point of order.
25%. And he gave her a 25%.
You're all done.
Okay,
Thank you.
he gave her a
You're all done.
25%
Thank you.
increase. And
Jared,
I
you're
just
done.
would like that looked
You're
at.
done. That's it.
So you can't talk about things that you feel has happened?
If you read that agreement, you're not supposed to say anything negative about city employees or city workers.
Oh, but you can say something positive.
No, you're done, Jared. Thank you.
Just want to let you know. Well, I just still want that looked into. He gave her a 25% increase. And I want to know why.
It's actually not true.
Okay,
So,
all right, that's all. I said allegedly. I didn't.
No, I'm talking about the increase too. Like both accusations are wrong. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Ron Vincent.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, Ron, the Common Council has provided you the copy of Section 3-244, public comment period. Are you in agreement with the rule?
Yes, I am.
Please state your name, Ron.
My name is Ron Vincent.
Thank you.
I've been talking a lot lately about the properties that don't pay taxes in the city of Utica. I've talked to our mayor personally about it. But there was a fellow on Talk of the Town the other day that's been doing the same thing that I've been doing, talking about all these nonprofits and all these other places that don't contribute to the city of Utica as far as helping us out with our taxes. Yes, we just had a large tax increase. We're well overdue for it. We haven't had one through the last administration. And things do catch up. They catch up with you at home. I would just wish that our mayor would have taken and put another $200,000 in there and hired a couple people to look into the things that this gentleman that was on the radio and myself have been looking into. I mean, I'm not a computer person. I don't carry a cell phone. But I got some friends that do, and every time I turn around, these people are coming to me with some information, and I just thought I'd bring up one tonight. Have you heard of the Mohawk Valley Garden Corporation? It's on 400 Oriskany Street. They own the Nexus Center and a bunch of other buildings that probably don't pay taxes. There's another LLC called the 311 Main Street LLC. It's owned by Rob Esch. Rob Esch is also the name for the Mohawk Valley Gardens. Mohawk Valley Gardens owns the Nexus Center, Babes, Kookies. They almost owned the Portofino, but surprisingly somebody ended up paying 3 times what they were offered, and they had to sell it to him, and he's paying taxes on it. Now there's going to be a place down at the harbor that's going to be part of this corporation too. They get protection from our fire department, our police department, our DPW, just like everybody else does that has to pay taxes and owns a home. Well, 311 Main Street, if you people are familiar with it, was owned years ago by a person who ended up selling it to ICANN for $450,000. ICANN is now moved there on the Parkway where the old school administration office building is. That's where they took the Children's Museum out of Main Street in Utica and moved it over there.
And you're going to have to finish up, please.
Now that building was sold to Rob Esch for $1. A nonprofit charity organization buys a building for $450,000, works out of it for years, turns around and sells it to somebody else for $1. And it's not on the tax rolls. Think about it, folks.
Marie McAnovich? McNavich.
So I'm gonna have to say it again when I get up there anyway. So I'll say, Marie McDavitt, while I'm on my way up, we'll save a little time, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna fill or bust through this thing. I'm kidding.
Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3 to 44 public comment period. Are you in
Yes.
agreement? Thank you, Marie.
I'm here to talk about everybody's favorite topic, the traffic island in South Utica. Now, I don't have a vested interest either way this decision goes, and I wasn't at the last meeting, but I watched it later, watched the video, and I had been here in the fall, and I had asked that divorce issues of convenience and opinion from fact and things like that, and the city was going to collect a whole bunch of information and then make the decision, and not so much. There's no facts, zero facts. That didn't happen. Let me give you one. There's a lot of talk about, well, I've heard from the bus drivers. Did anybody go get the city bus route, the bus route from the school? Find out where the buses actually go to be sure that that's what, just an example. Facts and figures would have been good, okay? For any deliberative body like this, how you make decisions is more important probably than the decision itself. That's my issue. It was in the fall and it is now. The words, the traffic island was put in illegally, was used over and over again as a reason to take it out, right? But it's a traffic control. We don't usually ask a public opinion about a traffic control. And the Corporation Council said, well, maybe not so much illegal. There's a gray area. It would have been nice to have that figured out before you start using that word. That wasn't a good word to use before you really knew it was true. Because we don't usually ask about public opinion for traffic safety controls, this set a terrible precedent for the future. Like, I want to put in a stop sign on a block and somebody objects, and you don't take it out for them, they could come back to you and say, well, you took it out for these other guys. Do they have some special interest? Are you related to them? Are you a special friend to someone on the council? What evidence would you show them from your proceedings to beat that idea back? You don't have any. You didn't look at any facts. So that's some of the things that I object to. Your own special counsel said, why don't you wait? And then at the beginning of the meeting, I heard a lot about, let's have a kinder, gentler council, let's work together, let's go. You know. The third ward guy got blinded. It got pulled out of committee at the last minute. He's like, what? That's not the start of the kinder, gentler council. That's not good cooperation. You probably should hope he's a nicer person than I am, because I probably wouldn't forget that, and you're going to need his cred at some point with your own constituents. He knew things were hot in his neighborhood, and he wanted time to go in there, figure out what was what, and calm it down. And you didn't allow him that time. However it got there, he needed time with his constituents, and he didn't get it. Not real happy about how that was done. I read a book a long time ago about management. It said, good management's like watching a pot on a stove. When it's too cold, people aren't talking, you gotta heat it up and get them to talk. But when it's too hot, you gotta go in and turn the heat down, bring it to an even temperature. So with this particular issue,
Marie, you're going to have to finish up, please.
Glad it got vetoed. Give them the time.
Thank you. Peter Previte. Peter, Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 public comment period. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Peter Pravitt.
Thank you.
I don't have any really prepared words, but I'm here to talk about the moratorium that's put in place. I'm with the Air City Cannabis Organization, and I feel like we've been unfairly tabled by this whole process. When you're dealing with these this entity, we went through the state. We followed everything we were supposed to do for the state. And back in October, we notified the city that we would be coming into this municipality. That's all we were required to do at that time. Sorry about that. It's all we were required to do. So with this moratorium put in place, there was no notification, no anything that we were supposed to do anything further than our already obligation. If if there was some kind of timing with the planning board, that was not set. There's nothing in the writing that says you had to notify the planning board by this time. It's when you're ready, that's when you inform the planning board. Is that correct? So if we're there and we did everything by the letter, we have a couple attorneys on our staff that followed up on everything, we're not notified of anything about a certain time that the planning board had to be notified. So if that's not the case, my question is there a time in the writing or anywhere that we were supposed to follow some kind of timing to the letter of law? And if not, then we should be exempt from any kind of moratorium. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Courtney Forrester? Courtney, the Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244, public comment period. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Courtney Forrester.
Thank you, Courtney.
So I'm also with Air City Cannabis. I am the owner of the entity, and as my partner had mentioned, we did follow every step of the way with our legal team predating the moratorium. We were never notified. We did notify the city that we would be opening predating the moratorium. We were told that it wasn't their obligation to let us know that there was some timeline with the moratorium coming, that it wasn't their obligation to let us know that it was coming. So that when it happened, it was too late. We were not put on the exemption list, although we were already licensed before that date. We have not been able to open because of the moratorium. The moratorium that's in place, from what I understand, is only stopping, I believe, us and maybe one other entity from opening. And it's just, I feel it's something that we were left out of, that we should have been on that exemption list. Our notification in October that predated the moratorium should have been sufficient enough to get us on that exemption list, and we just were not given a fair chance.
Thank you, Courtney.
Mr. President, can Brian Thomas just clarify for the floor, even if the moratorium wasn't in place?
We're going to go around
No.
to the department heads.
Yeah, if you could, just even if it wasn't in place and they applied for a special use permit, it doesn't necessarily mean that the city has to grant them a special use permit. So even with the moratorium, it's a two different separate bodies. So I just wanted to point that out for clarification. And Mr. Thomas could explain that when he gets the floor.
Good.
Okay, there's no common council guest speaker. Communications from the mayor, Mayor Galimi.
Yes. I obviously spoke on a couple pieces of legislation during the pre-meeting conference, but I'll actually take some time to address some of the public comments, the reasonable public comments. The tax exempt properties. Good timing, Ron. We had a department head meeting this week. One of the department heads is the assessor, and I was requested from the administration, the assessor create a report of not only the tax exempt properties, but the properties we have under pilot, to assess how we've been performing with those, what the pilots look like, how they've been graduating, but then also with the tax exempt properties, break it down in a property classification so we can see what is just a random kind of organized not-for-profit, which are justifiable, versus a church or a school versus a community, just to see how those not-for-profits stack up and what the actual count of each of them are. So when we get that, I'll be glad to share it. Part of that is going to be from the assessor a real value, right? So for example, you could take one of these old churches, for example, and assess it for the architectural value, what it might build for, and that might be its full value assessment. But then there's a real assessment of what it might sell for if someone were to purchase it. And that sale price would effectively become the assessed value and then multiplied by 0.41, for example, our equalization rate. So the whole point is we're going to get a real idea of it rather than just the kind of pull the numbers and run the full values and see what it is, so we can really assess it. And then potentially, what we may talk about again is a curb assessment. You talked about that before. This council has taken that up before, because while that would have to be levied across every property, as you, some of the council people on the floor, and many others have said, that would still put some skin in the game as far as the public services that are utilized, okay? So I just wanted to take a moment to address that. The traffic island. There was a veto message. While that veto message may not actually be a veto, all the budget amendments that I vetoed fell under the veto process of second-class cities law. The veto for that ordinance falls under the city's charter, which is 6 days. So the veto message may actually have come a few days too late. Be that as it may, it still could be reconsidered. So I'm going to just reiterate what the point of the veto message was. Now, I do want to address what was discussed in public comment. The aggravation, I can't remember your first name, I apologize. Okay. With the rushed process, all of the things you express now about saying rip it out, I was council president when it was initially put in. It was much, much more abrupt and out of nowhere back then, and not even presented to this floor. I live in the neighborhood. I drove by and there was nothing. I drove home from work and there was a giant hole in the road. I was the council president. So if you want to talk about abrupt now, even though this has been discussed for the past 4 or 5 months openly with everybody, that was abrupt. So regardless, if that veto doesn't stand, we still can't rip it out until we have the contractors to actually put the paving back when we rip it out. So I'll just make the same statement. If this council does want to work with the engineering department and discuss and do a walkthrough, specifically led by the 3rd Ward council person, I would expect, and assess whether reducing the island so that cars do have enough room to drive in 2 directions with parked cars, et cetera, because the whole point was they either have to put in no parking all around that island or rip it out. And that was based on fact. They had a report, this council all looked it over, and at that last meeting, they decided instead of no parking, they're going to pass an ordinance to remove it. It's under their purview, so whatever the council ultimately decides, I'm going to have to figure out where to find the funding, of course, but then I will act. But the engineering department did do an assessment of how they could reduce the size of the island today, and you know, that's something that you can discuss with the engineering department. The council's welcome to talk with them about. Councilman Bitar, likewise. So there's that. The dispensaries. The chief of staff and I attended NICOM. One of the conferences we attended at NICOM was specifically about the new cannabis dispensary laws. And one of the point blank things that they stated was that separate from all of the things that are absolutely granted outside the scope of the municipality, the zoning and planning ramifications and regulations and all those processes are absolutely 100% still within local control. The reason we did the moratorium, which it was a 6-month moratorium, it's not permanent, okay, was that at that time there was valid concern because of the influx of applications when the state changed the regulations such that you no longer had to have a criminal record to apply for a dispensary permit. The influx of applications presented a situation where we had not really looked at the zoning code specific to dispensaries and where they could go. And they were kind of allowed across zoning that really bled into neighborhoods. So this administration, as of January 2nd, came in and said, listen, we want to take the time to appropriately create a district for the dispensaries that does not restrict them, because we did not opt out, but also defines it more specifically so that it takes away all the gray area, so someone's not like, hey, how come this is on the corner of a block where you've got residential houses in every corner. There were some corners in our zoning code that could have happened. So I said, please Corporation Council, let's request a 6-month moratorium. If it passes, we will enact immediately action from the planning board to come up with an actual zoning district that the council can consider. We're doing that within that 6 months. And if this council does not finish that within the 6 months, it will expire, and then we'll open the floodgates again to wherever in the zoning a special use permit can be granted, it will be applied for. But at the state level, they say all dispensaries, regardless of permitting they get from the state level, must follow local zoning codes. Lastly, I'd like to introduce another new member of our government here. It's the Deputy City Engineer, Nick Breidenbecker. He has a 20-year experience in everything from construction management, running his own firm for millwork and cabinet design, has an architectural design degree, and has worked for multiple companies such as JM Door locally. When he was working drawing for local architects, he drew some of the houses under Hope 6 years ago. So he has a lot of experience both across multiple different states, but he brings a very good resume in construction management, project management, personnel management, but he also has a lot of local experience with the city. He grew up in this city, ultimately going to Arizona for a while for some schooling, worked for different architect firms out in Arizona. His resume absolutely suited the position. He's just started Monday, so this is really a good step, and he's also a Utican now. And I wanted to reference that again. Sometimes we have to deal with these residency waivers because the city does absolutely interview people from the city, or they'll post and not garner people. People might not show up there. So we have a residency waiver for a laborer right now who's young, and the Parks Department wants to bring that person on. But this administration is absolutely canvassing Utica, New York, and that's representative in how this administration is starting to build up. So Nick Breidenbecker, he's your new Deputy City Engineer. So I'd like to just introduce him. He may have some updates, some things when we get around to him, but I'll hand the floor back to the Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Report of city officers. We'll start with Commissioner of Codes, Marcus Phillips.
So, on the rare occasion, sometimes public officials, we get compliments. And you always tell people, don't compliment me on something you get paid to do, right? Because taking your money to do it, no need for anything that. So I don't like to compliment people for doing their job. But I would like to compliment and acknowledge the police department and the Parks Department for going above and beyond their job. As we go through spring cleaning with codes and abatements, we have challenges now that we never had before with people being in places you don't expect them, sometimes people with mental illnesses, needles, paraphernalia that can be harmful to the people picking it up. And so far this spring, police and parks have been there for us and for the city to help clean up these things and these situations for our residents, despite the fact that some of it's not their job. And so while they had 2 representatives here, I wanted to say publicly that I'm really grateful for you guys helping us do that.
Deputy City Engineer Nick Breidenbecker.
Yes, sir. Well, this is day 3. I was hired on Monday. Proud to report that I have a great engineering team underneath me. They're very knowledgeable. They're ambitious. We want to do what's right for the city. I do have over 20 years of experience, as the mayor has stated. I've worked in various different sectors of construction management. And up to date, I'm very ambitious to work with council on this island, as it has been a contention for most of the city since I've been paying attention to all the contentions. Also, we have good projects in the city that are starting. We have good projects that are finishing. I've walked Harbor Point. I've walked Valley View, I think the direction that some of these parks are going is going to bring some more fun to the city and comfort, and help the residents enjoy the city a little more. I'm Utica proud. I've been a Utican. I did leave for schooling. I did leave for a little bit more career experience that I was not able to get here, such as a New York City tour for a few years. However, I'm back. I'm raising my family here. We're proud to be Proctor students and Uticans. So I hope I can bring my skill sets to the city and make everybody as proud as I am.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Nick.
Chief Gentile?
Good.
I almost
Not
want
gonna
to
go
like
that long, are
go
you?
that way and come back. I
A lot of
have
positivity over here.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a lot to say, but I'm gonna not say a lot of things because it's just gonna go down a bad path. But we are in spring. Things are starting to turn. The weather's starting to change. A lot of hard work. I will compliment Marcus. His team's been out there quite a bit, jumping on the codes issues, police department, parks, fire department. All our departments are really working, up to their full potential. We have a good thing going, and we should be proud of what our city is doing and where we're turning the corner. It's been difficult. I mean, we talked about the budget season and those things, but now we're starting to put things into effective change. And in my world, it has not been difficult to get cooperation from any of the department heads or any information that we needed to, move the city forward. So that's, a really good thing. And yeah, I'll end there.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor Galimi, what's up?
Didn't talk enough.
I'm good. Good. Good.
Deputy Chief Noonan, UPD.
A lot of pressure here. Say nothing to report, Nick. That's something that's a phrase you can.
I mean,
You could. You could. The only thing I have is the last 2 weeks, the International Hockey Federation tournament. Obviously successful, but I'll speak as far as safety and security. I'd like to thank the Utica police officers, the sheriff's deputies, and the state police who worked that detail throughout the duration of the event. Unfortunately, I have to recognize Captain Jim Holt, who spent a lot of time planning the event. He was down there when he was off duty, checking in, making sure everything ran well. The thing we forget is it's an international event, and with that comes a lot of precautions that we don't think about. You have teams from all over the world coming in. Some countries that are in different situations than us, and we have to take extra precautions. So everyone who worked it did a great job. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Brian Thomas, Urban Renewal.
Just to address the public comments made by the two representatives from Air City Cannabis, the statement was made that they were never notified of the moratorium. I just want to state there's no requirement by the city or the Common Council or city staff that notifications go out to people affected by a moratorium. It would be impossible for us to determine who may or may not be affected by a moratorium. So to suggest that, it's just not reasonable. Secondly, the comment was made that they should have been added to an exemption list. As far as I know, there's no such thing as an exemption list. It applied to anybody who hadn't, as of yet, submitted an application. They are correct. They submitted the state-required notification to the municipality in October. Within days, I responded in writing, acknowledging receipt of that intent and informing them that a planning board application would be required, but not giving them any sort of timing. That was up to them as property owner, as applicant, as developer, to determine when they decided to submit that application. Unfortunately, it ended up being after the moratorium was adopted, at which point the hands of the planning board and me and my staff are really tied. We have to comply with the moratorium that you put in place, that this body put in place, and not address the application until there is no more moratorium. That's it.
Thank you, Brian. Stephanie DeGiorgio, Corporation Counsel.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner Parks, Mark Sokolowski.
I have a couple of things I like to get off my chest. Number one, for all you Little League coaches in here, President of Little League, your field's been mowed for the
District
first time.
Administrator.
Saw your field's been mowed for the first time this week. Number two, the green waste, we're going around
Cinderella
picking all the
has it.
green waste stuff.
Don't forget softball.
We're on
Cinderella
track. And number three, Nick, welcome aboard. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Judge Guillermo would like to speak.
I would like to say that I give legal advice to the Common Council, and they take it or they don't take it, and I give. When Councilman Williamson asked me the last meeting what my advice on something was, that's a lot different than the question, what is your legal advice on it? If you'll recall at that meeting, the Assistant Corporation Counsel said she thought the matter regarding the structure up on the 3rd District, whether it was legal or not, she said was a gray area. Miss Councilman Williamson asked me what my advice on the whole matter was, and I said we'd follow the ordinance. As far as what were my legal opinion, I want to defend my clients. As you saw tonight, the council persons, Councilman Testa, other councilmen, we have these agreements and disagreements about procedures and all that, and you could see that they're very knowledgeable people. And to think that the matter up on Richardson or Dunham has not been discussed, it has been discussed ad nauseum. This council has discussed this over and over. They have not taken something just out of a pile and acted on it. They have been thinking about it ever since before Christmas, as I recall. And so I want the people to know that I defend my clients, that they are people who take serious notice of a matter. In their own way, they study it, and a good lawyer doesn't make predictions about the outcome of any legal matter if he's had any experience, because legal matters have a way of going different ways depending on who shows up as a witness, number one, and what the evidence is. So they know what my opinion is about these matters. They know what Mr. Giorgio's opinions are. They're not necessarily always the same, but we follow a pattern of respect and courtesy to each other. Even when the council people and I discuss a matter, it's always about procedure. It has nothing personal, and they look to me for legal guidance, and I try to give it to them. I am their attorney, and for the most part, they listen to me, and that's why I'm here. And I don't have to give a legal opinion about the legislation that was before the mayor. The council knows how I feel about that. And this is now a legislative decision. The executive has said and written a veto message. I read it. It's pretty clear about how he feels about it. And I think the Common Council, as they always do, because you don't see this, they will discuss this matter amongst themselves, and whatever decision they make is one that they've made in a thoughtful way. And I just feel that when people come here and talk about our relationship, about what our advice and all that is, I want to be clear that it's all on a professional level. I respect every one of the council people, and I also am here to make sure everybody understands that they do for legal matters to me, and I do give them legal opinions when it's required. And generally, I give them advice too, which they can take or not take, because they're individuals and they have that right. I want to make that clear because there was some impression like the council takes things and does willy-nilly. That wasn't the case with this matter. It has been long under discussion and a lot of thoughtful, and I don't even know the outcome because I haven't asked, and I'm not going to give an opinion. They'll do what they want. That's why you elected them. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your courtesy.
Thank you, Judge. City Clerk, is there a cash report?
City of Utica cash report for March 2024 totals $34.677 million received and filed.
Thank you. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First Ward, Councilwoman Aiel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Second Ward, Councilman Burmaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I appreciate it. I do want to invite the new engineer to our committee meeting because I think we should talk about the veto, and if I need to together with the clerk to write up whatever, I'll do that too. But welcome you aboard. It's nice to have you aboard, and good luck to you. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for working on some kind of a medium with the Humane Society. I don't know what the end line is yet, but good luck because we certainly need something. I've had some inquiries because evidently some of my people in West Utica know about the dogs not being where they're supposed to be, I guess. But I want to thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite you to the meeting for, if I didn't say it, for the committee meeting. I think it's on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And hopefully before that we can talk about, we'll talk about the veto and we'll take it from there. Maybe we'll have some more answers. But we only have X amount of time to respond to it. But thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Third Ward, Councilmember Bitar.
Thank you, Mr. President. With reference to the traffic island, I think this has been a contentious issue for several months from when it went in November. And, you know, there's a lot going on with this. And first, Mayor, I appreciate your words on the on the traffic island. I look forward to working with the administration, look forward to working with the new deputy city engineer here to come up with a solution with really two goals in mind. Maximize safety, maximize community support. Because since I was sworn in January, those were the two goals. And speaking with neighbors to see where we could get the most community support, and first and foremost, maximizing safety, whether whatever the result is going to be, following the process and doing our due diligence to make sure we have all the information in front of us before a final decision is made here. So coming up here, I do again look forward to working with a new deputy city engineer and the administration as well to come up with a reasonable solution here with those two goals in mind. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Fourth Ward, Councilmember.
Yes, Marcus said when somebody in their department does something right, it's their job and they shouldn't be praised. But when they do something wrong, it's often brought up. So I do think you should be praised. And we had an incident in Hannaford's on Mohawk Street where we've had continuous problems. And we had 3 policemen catch the people that were pushing people down to take their keys within 5 minutes. And I think they should be commended for doing such a good job. And it was Officer Mike Flo, Sergeant Josh Skabitsky, and Officer Sinell. I don't know if I'm going to say his name right. Belson. And I just think they, deserve credit. They caught him within 5 minutes. Maybe it will slow down the activity in that parking lot. So I do think they deserve credit when it's due.
Thank you. Fifth Ward, Councilmember Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just going to report that Johnson Park Center, the housing units are almost done. Most of them, 2 of them are done. One more it's got to be finished, a large one. And the community center is almost completed. It's really beautiful. So I don't know what else they're going to do with it besides the food pantry and other things. The second thing is, I'll call their District 5, and hopefully they'll listen to me to pick up in front of their yards and a little 20 or 30, 25 feet in front of their houses in the road, because we can do that without waiting for the city to come through with the cleaners. And lastly, I know we have animal control, but I don't know if they chase roosters, but there's a couple roosters running around there. They're the fastest roosters I ever seen.
Only if we put it on camera.
Yeah, I don't know who they belong to, and I went around to the neighbors trying to find out, but when I came back with the person that owns them, and they were up the street, running up West Street. So please, if those are your roosters, please get them. Thank you.
Thank you. Sixth Ward Council Member Beatrice.
Thank you, Mr. President. First thing I want to say is to the city engineer, welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you. You'll probably get sick of me in about 2 weeks maybe, because I'll be asking you a lot of questions and coming to see you, but thank you so much. Second, I want to say, Mayor Galimi, I give you all the credit in the world. This is my 5th year on the council, and it's an honor to see the department heads coming here, and I give you a lot of credit that you come up. You have to make a lot of tough speeches. You have to a lot of tough decisions, and you're here, and I really appreciate you coming to our meetings. Lastly, North Utica Neighborhood Association, Monday, April 22nd, 6:30. I will be there along with Mr. Gentile. We're there from 5:30 to 6:30 if anybody wants to come and meet with us separately with any issues. The Monday meeting in North Utica, we have guest speaker is Shannon Wheat from the Standard Insulation presentation on NYSERDA and home energy audits. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Council Member at Large Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to pass.
Thank you. Council Member at Large Colosimo Testa.
Thank you, Mr. President. At least Joe Beatrice gave you 2 weeks. I gave you about 2 hours. You're probably already sick of me, huh? All jokes aside, we had a great event this afternoon. We recognized the proclamation for Joey O. We were able to go to the baseball field today at Proctor's game. Mayor Galimi was there, several members of the council, and we were able to recognize and honor the family. Unfortunately, the weather didn't hold off. That's why I kind of look like a little bit of a wet dog.
We braved it.
You know,
the game was canceled.
but it was an absolutely phenomenal event to be able to recognize the family, the Alvadotti family, and the anniversary of their son's passing. With that said, I hope everybody enjoys their spring break. Stay safe and has a great spring break. That's it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Member at Large Lemetico.
I'd just like to thank everybody for coming and for your input today. And last week we had the championships, the hockey championships, and I was able to attend a couple of the games. And I think the city of Utica and everyone involved did a tremendous job. And I look forward to the next one. Hopefully they'll come back. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to introduce proposed ordinance number 1? Motion. Second. An ordinance rescinding ordinance number 25 of 2023, an ordinance authorizing the placement of sign designating the location of the residence of the city of Utica's first elected mayor by the Ancient Order of Hibernus John C. Devereaux Division. Be it ordained that the ordinance number 25 of 2023 be hereby rescinded and annulled. Votes?
Nine yeas adopted.
A motion to introduce proposed ordinance number 2. Second.
Thank you.
Yep. An ordinance authorizing the placement of sign designating the location of the residence of the city of Utica's first elected mayor by the Ancient Order of the Hibernus John C. Devereaux Division. Votes?
9 yeas adopted.
Can I have a motion to introduce proposed resolution number 3? Second? Proclamation recognizing the Lion Club of Utica on its 100th anniversary, whereas on February 8th, 2024, the Lions Club of Utica, along with the entire international organization, celebrated its 100th anniversary charter and an organization dedicated to the public service. Now therefore be resolved that the Utica Common Council for the City of Utica does hereby recognize and congratulate the Lions Club of Utica on its 100th anniversary charter, and will have this proclamation become part of the minutes of the Common Council meeting held this 3rd day of April 2024. Your votes?
This is full council.
Full council.
9 yeas adopted.
Can I have a motion to introduce proposed ordinance number 4? Second? Okay, ordinance waiving residency requirements for the position of parks laborer, whereas the city has conducted extensive search and advertisement for the position of parks and laborer, is having difficulties finding qualified and hard-working candidates. Whereas the individual currently resides in West Winfield with his parents, and whereas Mr. Anguza would like to reside outside of the city limits, further ordained that this waiver applies to this individual in this position only and will not be applicable to any future applicants for the position unless otherwise determined by the ordinance of the Common Council. Votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
A motion to introduce proposed resolution number 5. Second. Resolution to maintain highway lighting, Route 5, French Road, interchange, bridge repairs, City of Utica, Oneida County. Your votes?
Nine yeas adopted.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 6.
Thank you.
Second. Resolution to maintain highway lighting, Route 921C, North Genesee Street, safety project, City of Utica, Oneida County. Votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Proposed resolution number 7, you want to put in committee?
I'd like to make a motion to put in a pre-meeting conference. Keep it in there.
Second.
Yep, say committed.
Committed. Motion to introduce proposed ordinance number 8. Yeah, that one's it. Motion to introduce proposed ordinance number 8. Do we have a motion, guys? Do we have a motion? A second? Guys. Ordinance amending sewer rents, ordained section 22648 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Utica, fixing the amount of sewer rents is hereby amended. Further ordained for customer billed on a monthly basis, these rates shall be effective with bills sent out May 1st, 2024, and thereafter for customers billed on quarterly basis, these rates shall be effective with the bills sent out on July 1st, 2024.
We need a unanimous vote. You can tell them that it needs to be unanimous.
Has to be a unanimous vote.
Nine yeas adopted.
Proposed ordinance number 9, are we going to place that into committee? We have a motion? Second? Okay, commit?
I have an amendment. Mr. President?
Yeah.
On ordinance number 2, regarding Mr. Devereaux, we
Yeah.
introduced that, right?
We already did it.
Yeah, I know, but we have to change the heading because the heading was copied from another ordinance. But this ordinance should read, an ordinance authorizing the placement of a sign honoring and acknowledging the city of Utica's first mayor, the ancient Order of Librarians, John Devereux Division. And that's what it is. The placement of the sign was different in the other ordinance. This is just acknowledging in this ordinance that the sign is going to be placed next to the Irish Community Center. So the heading is that we're acknowledging the city's first Utica mayor by the placement of the sign, but the ordinance says where the sign's going to be. It says in the ordinance,
Judge.
at the Irish Community Center. If you did, somebody make a motion to, that was yours, Mr. Councilman Williamson, to amend the heading.
It was mine.
Can we have a
Mr.
motion
Dutcher
to amend
Peters,
the
yeah,
heading?
that's
Yeah.
yours.
Can we amend the heading?
Yeah, do you,
You gotta reconsider it first, because you already passed it.
Okay. So we're gonna,
Can we-
can
Gonna make a
we
motion to
reconsider this?
yeah, reconsider the ordinance
No,
as to the
you gotta make a
heading.
motion to
With the
reconsider.
amend- yep.
Take a vote.
Take
We
a
have
vote to
motion
reconsider.
Second.
Opposed?
I just don't understand.
Vote.
Okay,
9 yeas to reconsider.
okay. Thank you very much.
Can we have a motion to amend? Second.
Votes.
Vote.
Venice.
9 yeas.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Now you gotta make the motion to amend.
Motion to amend. We already did.
He's gotta make the motion to bring it to the floor for a vote.
Can we bring it to the floor for the vote?
Yeah, yes.
We just did.
Okay.
That's not complicated. Let's-
So, all right, clear the board. You got to vote. Three.
9 yeas.
Thank you.
Proposed ordinance number 10, do you guys want to, can we have
Second.
a second?
Second.
Commit. Is there a motion and a second to remove pieces from committee?
No, we got 11.
Oh, do we have 11?
Right here. Motion is.
Motion to introduce proposed resolution number 11. Motion, second. A resolution approving the granting of permanent easement to Niagara Mohawk and to Verizon at Valley View Golf Course. Can I have your votes?
9 yeas adopted.
Is there a motion and a second to remove pieces from committee?
What about 10 and 11?
Second, okay. Proposed ordinance number 3, motion.
We got it. Just read it and then they take your
Yep.
vote.
No parking at all times, be it ordained, section 2, 16-360, schedule E, no parking at all times. On Broadway from Lafayette Street to Columbia Street along the western curve line, no parking anytime. Votes, please.
Nine yeas adopted.
Is there any other pieces?
Motion to pull, are we doing 5?
There's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Motion to pull
5,
ordinance
7.
5.
Okay.
Did you make did you make an amendment on the floor for this one? This one's a lot. Number 5, it's a lot, 250, right? Is it read as is, that it's a lot now?
It's in there in the third paragraph.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, ordinance approving the designation of A&D Investment LLC as eligible as qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of General Municipal Law for the purpose of the sale of 318.64-17 Mulberry Street, whereas the purchase offer for the property has been received to the Utica Urban Renewal Agency from A&D Investment LLC in the amount of $250. Your votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Ordinance number 7.
Motion.
Second. Ordinance approving the designation of Haran Nevasela as an eligible as a qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of General Municipal Law for the purpose of the sale of 1233 Steuben Street for $23,000.
Your votes.
Your votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Anything else that we're pulling?
Where's the public hearing one? It was a resolution 9.
Number 9.
There's going to be a public hearing
For
on
May
resolution
1st.
number 9?
Yep, so amended to say me. Thank you. Yep, so.
Public hearing.
Make an amendment.
I don't know what I mixed all my stuff.
I make a
up
motion
there.
to amend and,
Motion to amend?
yeah, to add a hearing on the proposed amendments and at its regular meeting on May 1st.
Is there a second? Yep. Now therefore resolved that Utica County Council shall conduct a public hearing on the proposed amendments on its regular meeting on May 1st, 2024.
Oh, we also, sorry, we amend that one. There's also errors in the second whereas. We need to correct.
You gotta vote.
Amend the first one first. Is that what we're doing?
We have to amend the date.
And then I can amend the
Yeah,
second
we
one.
amended.
Which date?
April 3rd, 2000.
No, that's the date that it was actually referred to the planning
Oh,
board.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
So, yeah,
You gotta
not the
vote,
date
man.
that they
Last
sent
year.
their comments, just when they actually got their,
Cool.
And then May 1st will be the.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Your votes, please.
9 yeas adopted.
Pulling anything else out? Motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.